And welcome into this episode 4 of AAPI VTuber Talks. I'm your host, AtramentumX, variety streamer and YouTuber and proud Asian American. As I've mentioned, this is episode 4, and we're talking all about growing up Asian, subverting cultural expectations, and the age hierarchy. What does that mean? That is a lot of words, I know. But essentially what we're talking about is we're talking about the conventional wisdom of growing up Asian, what we see in culture and the media, and what it actually means, the lived experience of growing up Asian. So we've assembled today 4 lovely guests. I believe everyone appeared on last year's AAPI VTuber Talk, so we're running it back with the same cast, but we've mixed it around a little bit. I do see that some folks are a little bit off the couch right now, so I'm going to be adjusting them while they do their introductions. Hang on, I'm just gonna... There you go. My first off is my co-host, Princess Raska. Princess will be joining me today as we're co-sharing the hosting duties for this. So Princess, tell the audience a bit about yourself.
I didn't practice my intro. Hi, I am Vietnamese American, and I am the eldest daughter of my family. Basically the eldest daughter on my mom, like eldest cousin as well on my mom's side, like eldest cousin that was a girl. Which is kind of important, I guess.
It is actually, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I do a lot of things. I mainly play, a lot of people know me for playing Jump King. I am your, violin playing, math excelling Asian. So.
Welcome to the podcast where we're subverting Asian expectations with the most Asian.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect for this podcast.
Just kidding. Oh, God. No, in all seriousness, Princess has a very interesting lived experience that I'm hoping to get into in today's pod. Both from sort of being the conventional Asian, but also having some unconventional experiences as well. So I'm very happy to have Princess back for this one.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Next up are a very excellent friend, Asian Mike.
Yeah, that's me. I also did not rehearse my intro, so we're just gonna wing this. So sometimes cosplayer, sometimes streamer, sometimes graphic designer, and workout enthusiast. I am half Korean. I don't have any siblings, so I have like a very different perspective on this topic, especially. As far as like my ethnicity, I am like again half Korean, and I am the oldest amongst all my cousins. So I kind of look out for all of them when I can keep in touch with them, and I also teach them a lot of English slang. But yeah, I'm a big gamer as well, and an egg.
And egg, yes. Mike, you're moving this year in a live TV form.
Excellent.
Excellent, yes. No, I'm actually glad you guys are bringing up the whole like eldest on your mom's side, eldest on your like father's side, what yada yada, because I didn't even think about that, because like that too is really important. Like when it comes to like comparing you against your cousins, that's a big one.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Next up, making a return to the pod is Mayuri Rose Audio.
Hi. I'm Mayuri Rose, but most people call me Mari or Rose. Take your pick. I am a voice actor, scriptwriter, book editor, and sometimes streamer. I'm Filipino American. I am the eldest cousin on both sides of my family. And fun fact, 5th generation eldest daughter, eldest child.
Oh.
Got a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, now if any of them would actually listen to me, that'd be a different story.
Yeah, no, probably. Of course not.
Not happening.
But thank you so much for sharing that with us, Mari, and it's a joy to have you back, of course.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And last but not least, bringing up the rear of the panel is Safi.
What's an intro, huh?
What, are you bringing up the rear?
No. I am South Asian, specifically Pakistani. On my father's side, I'm amongst the older cousins, but on my mother's side, I'm somewhere jumbled in the middle because my grandmother had like 10 kids, and her kids had kids, and their kids. There's a lot of us.
Right.
Um, so I'm kind of like meshed in there somewhere. And then in my like main family, I am the middle child. So
Thank you for
I
sharing
get it
that with us,
from
Effie.
both sides.
Gotcha. So let me see if I heard that correctly. Princess eldest, Mike only child but eldest on of the cousins, Mari oldest and oldest of cousins, I think it was.
Mhm.
And Safi middle child and middle of cousins. Yes.
Yep.
Got it. Okay, so a wide variety here. And my personal experience. So I'm also South Asian. I'm from the Indian diaspora, specifically the Caribbean. So I'm 5th generation Indian. I am the third oldest of the cousins on my mother's side, the second youngest on my father's cousin's side, and oldest in my family with a younger brother. So, yeah, and the last to be married. By the way, second to last
That's
to be married.
important.
Well.
That's another one.
Uh-huh.
So you guys will be feeling that one soon.
I'm already there.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So, chat, if you have any questions for a panel, feel free. You can ask them in chat. I'll have an anonymous link up soon that you can ask questions as well. Not that you probably have any anonymous questions for this topic, but I'll have them up anyway. I've also got some prep questions, and the structure of this panel is you guys can just hop in any time. There is no structure. Just feel free to speak as you see fit. So, let's start with expectations. Going back to your childhood. This is a therapy session. So feel free to therapize as much as you want.
Surprise.
Surprise therapy.
Welcome
This one's
to
free.
therapy.
So here's the first question. What were the expectations that your parents had for you growing up? With technology and the economy, how did that change over time? For example, did they eventually warm up to less traditional career choice?
I think
Go ahead.
I think growing up my parents always kind of had like the standard, oh, become a doctor, oh, become a lawyer. Like
Almost, yep.
that was just always the instilled like, hey, go for these career choices cuz for a whole slew of reasons, but mainly monetary. They just don't want you to like struggle, and then they want you to be successful because there's like a whole dynamic with that.
Of course.
It definitely took a long time for me to personally talk to my parents about going a non-traditional career route, which was for me very nerve-wracking, simply because at the end of the day, like I wasn't sure what the reactions were going to be, and it was always so instilled in me like, hey, medical route or like lawyer or something. Especially medical, considering like how much I would be like in the hospital with my grandmother and stuff like that, and I took care of her and I advocated for her. So like my medical knowledge because of that really pushed them to be like, hey, doctor. So when I did bring that up, it was definitely something that I was super anxious about. But surprisingly, because I sure as hell did not expect this, they were supportive, which was huge for me because I did not see that happening.
So they kind of saw you as being like an advocate for your grandma in a medical setting and thought you might be good at navigating that, but you sort of had other ideas.
Pretty much. Like, I would even get it from doctors because, like, I was with her. I mean, I would say she would end up in the hospital, like, every 3 months, like clockwork, with some sort of infection or something going on. Like, there was always something. So I got really good at medical communication when it came to talking to doctors and advocating for her and, like, figuring out the ins and outs of whatever she had that time and, like, what was needed and things like that. And because my parents don't, like, have the best English and things like that, I had to like also communicate that to them. So it just became like a lot of communicating medical things, and that kind of pushed them into that like be a doctor thing.
I did miss this earlier, by the way. Congratulations on your graduation, by the way.
Thank you.
And by graduation, we mean like academic graduation.
Actual
IRL,
yeah,
IRL.
IRL. Not the bad.
Wow, that's
Y'all
quite
are
the sudden
getting
announcement.
Wow, you came back just for this? Wow.
I'm gonna quickly go feed my cat. I'll be right back.
Yeah, go for it. It's funny that Safi mentions the doctor thing. I, on my mother's side, have 4 doctors on my mom's side.
Wow.
Yeah, they all went to med school in the Caribbean, though, so it doesn't count. That's just a yeah. But yeah, I definitely had the pressure, like, why don't you also become a doctor? I never was good at this sort of thing, and even now, like, they sort of have the rumbling, well, if you're not going to be like a medical doctor, why not like a PhD doctor? And I'm like, a PhD doctor in what? I'm in finance. Like, what do you what exactly do you want me to my mother's just like, oh, but it just pisses me off when like they call them like Dr. So and so and Dr. So and so. You don't get to be that. And you're so smart. And I'm just like, I don't care. Like my my self-esteem's not bound up in like doctor this and doctor that, you know? Yeah. How about the rest of you guys?
I mean, growing up, so on my side, my mom's side of the family, I was the first child born, right? My mom, I think I have one older cousin on my mom's side, but at the time that I was born, I think my mom and her brother were fighting. So it really was just me and like the rest of my aunts and uncles, and like we kind of did not visit that side of the family. My parents did not speak English that well, because they had just immigrated to the US after the Vietnam War. So for me, I think expectations for me growing up was pretty high. I was basically the person who went out, learned English at school, took that back, and essentially taught my parents English and also my brother and sister after they were born. Growing
That is
up,
so relatable.
right? Oh my gosh. And it's like every time my mom has to send a work email, she'd be like, hey honey, can you like check my email because I need to send it to my boss? And anytime they needed to do any like legal documentation, I would have to sit with them at the kitchen table, and I'm like, I was like 12, like I don't know why I was responsible for this. So yeah, in a way, same expectations, doctor, lawyer, engineer. IT was also big because Silicon Valley, right?
Right. Valley, yeah.
And I did not follow that career path at all. I studied as well as I could in high school. I graduated, and then when I went to college, I went as far away as I could. So, yeah, the
so
pressure.
No STEM.
Yeah, no, not in any,
Relatable.
meaningful way that So, that's just me.
It is a very common like thing I've heard, like for like a lot of Asian families, like the firstborn sort of learns like English in school, has to bring it home essentially, and like at the kitchen table is like take like sort of beyond their years, like helping so very much with the English and like translating, and it's definitely an interesting experience. Like it's not one I personally experienced myself because my parents were fluent in English, coming from an English colony, but like it's definitely something that I saw with a lot of my friends growing up too. Like it definitely resonates with me to hear you say that that's also part of my lived experience too. Like all my friends were doing it at the same time, you know what I mean? Excuse me.
It's funny you mentioned that because my girlfriend kind of dealt with a very similar situation that you described, Princess, where she's not the oldest, she's actually the middle, but she actually has to deal with that on like a daily basis, and I feel terrible for her because it's not easy trying to be like the translator and then helping with all the things like doing taxes, medical appointments, and stuff like that. And so I have a lot of empathy for her because personally for like my growing up, my dad was more or less like, hey, you can do creative Like that was my thing. Is
That's crazy.
I was big into music.
Yeah,
I was.
know.
I'm okay at math.
Yeah.
I was really good at drawing and design work. So my dad was like, "Hey, you can go get a degree in design, but I need you to like still have like a backup, like a real job." And I was like, "Okay, so I'm gonna go study graphic design. I'll have a real job that can kind of support it, and I'll just do it on the side." And in some ways, he was kind of right. I'm just glad he didn't want me to go like the doctor route, like my mom's side of the family. She actually wanted me to be a lawyer because she knows that like I'm very litigious and very detailed oriented.
Right.
So she's like, you need to be a lawyer and make a lot of money, and then you give that money back to the family. And I'm like, I don't want to be a lawyer. They had such a bad rap. I just don't know. I mean, Legal Eagle's pretty cool, right? But like, I don't know. I feel like lawyers get a bad rap. And then, yeah, I was very fortunate that like, I think there's only one of my cousins that's actually, they just got their master's and they're working their doctorate to go become a doctor. Everybody else is doing like fashion design. Another one is helping out with like the family restaurant. So those are pretty like, I guess you would say like traditional Korean like paths to take.
Right.
But
Korean skill tree.
yeah, but I have a mutual Saikin and I see him. Shout out to Saikin MD, mutual VTuber, another Asian homie.
Yes.
Yeah, I see him just posting all the time about medicine and his job as a doctor. And it's like, I am so glad I did not go that path.
I do not know how that man has time to be a doctor and a VTuber.
I don't either, but I applaud him all the time for
Very
that.
much so.
But
yeah,
to bring it back around to the question is like, I was actually very lucky. I had a very supportive parent, but understandably, that's my white / like non-Asian side of the family. So I kind of had that support because they were just more or less like, do what you want to do, just make sure you have like a fallback plan.
the broader sort of like, yeah, you can also do these other things. You don't have to be like one of the three things, basically.
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of like what led to my parents getting divorced is them. Yeah, no, literally, like that's kind of how it goes down is it's like there was a huge disconnect on like what my life and upbringing was going to be. My mom wanted a very more like Asian traditional household, and my dad, he wanted traditional, but he's like, no, we're doing like American traditional.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But he went out on a divorce, so like I kind of had like a mix because at some point I wanted to like go back and learn all the stuff that I kind of missed when growing up and not having to experience that. So I'm kind of like learning backwards on the things I missed out not growing up in like a Korean household.
You know, it's funny that you. No, go ahead, Mari.
No. You started. You have to finish.
It was a non sequitur because the minute Mike mentioned like Legal Eagle, I just like I had a gut punch like all the times I've had to do like legal documents for my parents besides not being a doctor. And I would like Google that shit.
Yeah, like that actually reminds me, like just the other day my mom was doing something with insurance. And she's like, hey, before I sign this, I need you to look through all of this to make sure I don't do anything I'm not supposed to. And like my experience is with like the English side of things. English is an official language in the Philippines, and my parents are actually pretty good at it. I would say better than a lot of native speakers. But it's usually up to me to kind of break down more complex stuff for them into like more digestible English for them. And as far as like my childhood goes, I think it's kind of like mine's kind of interesting because it's kind of flipped. My parents never really pressured me when I was a kid. I feel like that's probably because I was like one of those stereotypical like overachievers and like everything came kind of easy to me. They never pressured me to like go down a certain path. Never had those kind of expectations. I usually put those kind of on myself. Like I wanted to make them proud as like, they brought us over here. They gave me and my siblings like a chance for a better life. So I wanted to like do my best for them. It wasn't until actually cousins and like other family started moving over here that I actually am starting to feel a little bit that, at least on my, like from my dad, that he's feeling a little bit quote unquote inferior because our family is in his eyes not as successful as
Right. The
other
comparison.
family. So it is, yeah, so it wasn't until like I got older and like we had more quote unquote competition that I'm starting to feel like those expectations.
Right. I think that's always been sort of like the pressure that I feel, because like you, I was sort of like the quote unquote gifted kid, but like I was happier when I was doing that in a vacuum, and then suddenly when I was being compared to all these other cousins going to med school, I was like miserable because like I didn't want to do that, and why should it matter that like so and so's kids going to med school, because I don't want to do that, and I know them, they don't want to go to med school either, so like why should I go do the thing that they don't want to do?
I feel like there's a heavy
Yeah.
like at least in some cases there's like a heavy focus on perception, like how people perceive you and like
Yes.
what your status is.
Yep.
And people put so much importance in that to the point that they don't care if you're unhappy in your future endeavors as long as you're successful.
Yeah, because like you're a reflection of your parents essentially. Like you're like,
Yeah.
you're kind of all they've got. Like when you
Pretty
when,
much.
when they come over here.
Yeah.
And like don't get me wrong, like my parents, I feel like they've made a pretty good life for themselves. They've got like good jobs and they've like bought houses and property and yada yada. And at the end of the day, like everyone, the first thing people ask them is like not how's your job or how's your property or how's your whatever. It's like, is your son married yet? Or what's he up to?
Don't even start with me on that shit. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I feel like the goalposts too are always moving, right?
They are.
Like you achieve
Yeah.
a certain level of success that your parents want you to, and then they're comparing you to the next thing that they want you to achieve in life.
Oh, yeah.
right? And it's like it's
It's-
never good
yeah.
enough, you know?
Yeah, it's never ending.
I get that a lot because like my parents are always like, hey, can you come down to Florida and help us with X, Y, and Z? I'm like, I don't want to do that. And they're like, well, you're not married, so what you got going on?
Yeah. Like with me, like my sister, she has twins now, and they'll be like, "Oh, can you go over and like watch the twins? Like, can you go help your sister?" And I'm like, "No, I got stuff to do." They're like, What do you have to do?" Like,
Exactly.
I'm like, work.
Because like the way they
Other
see it, it's like
things.
if you don't move on to the next quote unquote stage in your life, you're kind of still like their child, basically. That's the way
Bro,
they
my
kinda
dad
see
already
it.
has the talks with me. He's like, I just want to see your kids before I die.
Ah, pain.
I'm like, look, I
Lord.
get it, I do, but goddamn. Oh my god.
One of these days, I'm just gonna bring home a puppy and be like, "Here's your child."
Bro, that's what I did with
Maybe.
Sylvester. That's what I did with Sylvester. I was like, here you go. And then my dad, every time, we gotta take him back. He keeps biting me. I'm like, he's 9 months old. He's figuring things out.
Aw, kitty.
Yeah.
We had a question in chat from Antarctic Prime. This was sort of related to the question about sort of how expectations have changed over time. And it's how's the advent of AI affected the expectations from your family regarding career paths? I will say this, like I don't think my parents know very much about AI and like what it's supposed to do and like how it's like affecting things. But I do know, like as a child of the 90s, like I did see like their expectations change quite a bit once we got our computer in like 1995, 96, and I was suddenly very good at the computer, quote unquote, the computer. Suddenly it was less like, oh, he should be a doctor, and more it should be like, well, he's pretty good at like tech stuff and IT and like writing and typing and stuff. So like I watched in real time as they got more and more like attuned to the fact that I could possibly do something with like, computers or tech or whatever it is. I didn't end up going that way, but it was interesting to see their expectations sort of change that way, especially as I sort of orient myself in that sort of way in high school and like undergrad. I don't know about you guys.
Well, I'm from the Silicon Valley, and we had that big boom in the like 90s and 2000s. So yeah, like definitely, it was always kind of like one of the career choices that my parents were like okay with. I don't know about so maybe we'll talk about this later on in the podcast, but
Yeah.
I have not talked to my parents since 2017.
Hmm.
So I don't know what their, expectations are for me anymore, like post AI world, like how
Right,
available
right.
it is and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
In my
Maybe
case,
Sappy, yeah, has more of a
it's like my parents don't know like a whole lot about AI either, but I've seen how it shaped stuff for my sister because like my sister
Oh.
uses it as like a tool to kind of help her get ideas to expand her business and things like that. And like she is actually going to be doing a workshop um about AI, funny enough. Yeah, so for her, like seeing that was interesting for me, but like my parents don't really know a whole lot about AI. So like there's nothing in that terms, but like they're definitely getting more used to the idea of me wanting to do something more technology based for work and things like that. Because I mean, I do work in tech, but also like I plan on going to school for computer science for my next degree, and like I want to work on more tech based things. So for them, it's getting used to that. Considering my parents have always been the kind of parents that I love them so much, but they'd be like, what are you doing on the computer all day? Like it's not gonna
Yeah.
do anything for you. Like ever, like the whole spiel about how technology is not gonna do anything for me.
Is the
And then I
computer
look
gonna
at them
feed you,
post
basically?
COVID,
Yeah.
and then I look at them like post COVID, and I'm like,
Suddenly computer
Like-
very important, huh?
so it's definitely very it's still very tricky because while I plan on doing technology based things and working on coding and all these other things, they're just like, computer won't do anything, you yada da 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 da, and I'm just like, look, I love you with all of my heart, but we're well past that point. Like I'm not a kid anymore where it's like, yeah, maybe technology wouldn't do me good, right? But it's like now I'm an adult, I'm well past adult. And I would like to think that that I'm doing things that are good for my future and benefit me, even if they are technology based. Like getting them out of that headspace is hard.
This is where I actually give mine a lot of credit. Like, I'm trying to put myself in their perspective, coming to this country as like poor immigrants in the 80s, and like being old school, and like being from a poor country that you had to just like hit the books, learn accounting, and like sort of work your way up like in the government job, and then seeing like in their time probably the biggest transformation in like our lifetimes, like in anyone's recent lifetimes, of the internet and like computers and stuff like that, and trying to parent through that. It's kind of crazy, right?
That's why I like try to make not excuses per se, but that's where I try to be more understanding.
Right, give them some grace, basically.
Like, yeah, because like as a kid, you're kind of like, oh my god, like why are they like this? Why are they on my case? Like I
Right.
don't get it. But then when you get older, you're just like, they did the best that they could given the tools that they had, and they came from a different time where like these things weren't there to help you. And so in their mind, they're trying to prepare me to be able to support myself in a world where I may not have access to that technology. And like, they're just trying their best to make sure that I'm also living my life to my fullest and like happiest. And so I know that everything that they say, no matter even in negativity, is generally meant to be like a positive thing. They just were not taught how to communicate. So I very much sometimes have to remind myself that, because I know that they're just trying their best, just like we are. Like,
Absolutely. Any TV show like featuring Asian Americans, where like there's been a couple of these, by the way, where it's like they do flashbacks to like them buying their kid like their first computer, and they flash forward to like 2023 or whatever it is, and the kid's like, "Not now, mom, I can't help you with the computer." I'm just like, God damn it. 'Cause I've done that, and I'm like, okay, I feel like that little shit.
It's kind of like we're like another aspect of it though, because like even though they tell me like, hey, computer won't do this and won't do that and da 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 da, I'm the first person they go to with their tech
Same,
problems.
same.
So
Mhm.
like my mom will like ask me for help like when she can't figure out like say she's like filling out like job applications or she's filling something out or like she's trying to figure something out or even just like basic email things. And she'll be like, how do I do this? How do I do that? Yeah, da, da, da. And then I'm just like, I got you.
Not even I shit you not even like 30 minutes ago, my mom called me and put my uncle, like when her cousin, I call my uncle, but it's by her cousin on the phone.
Yeah.
Essentially
Yeah.
was like, hey, you remember how you bought me a Chromebook last month? Can you explain to like my cousin like what a Chromebook is and why I should get one? And I'm like,
Bruh. That's so funny.
and I'm like, I don't think you should actually, because because like I could explain to you how a Chromebook works and how it's different from a Windows, but like I don't want him calling me to like explain to him like where like Excel is on this thing. There is no
Also
Excel.
depending, Chromebooks can be kind of ass.
A little
Depending
bit.
on like, yeah, depending on like a few factors. Like if they're doing something super simple, it's not a problem. But if
Yeah.
you want anything more than that, like they're not gonna last you long.
Yeah.
That's like the one downside.
It was my Mother's Day present to my mom. Put it that way.
No, that's completely valid. No, don't get me wrong.
Listen, it was an
Completely
8-year-old
valid.
laptop. But, like I was getting tired of having to do tech support an 8-year-old laptop. I'm like, here, take this, take it.
Nah, no. This is kind of where like I'm trying to hone myself because part of my job I work I have two part-time positions and one of them is selling technology and one is physically working on it.
Ah.
So my work spiels are coming out.
No.
Yeah.
How about the rest of you all? Like, do y'all feel like you, well, actually, no. I think we kind of covered this, actually. We can actually move on, I think. Yeah. So let's actually talk a bit more about, like, sort of the conventional, like, thinking about Asian American families. So part of the series, the API VTuber Talks, is to deconstruct, some of the typical like Asian American thinking and culture that's out there, because there's a lot of tropes about Asian Americans, like all Asians are studious or all Asian parents are strict and yada yada. So to sort of bring up to the next topic, so what is some conventional thinking you hear about Asian families that you think isn't necessarily true or applicable to your lived experience? Do you think it's important for Americans at large to understand this nuance?
A peek behind the curtain, so to say.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. Growing up, my family was like literally every Asian stereotype. So I can't contribute much to this question. You know, like my parents were very strict. They didn't allow me to date. The only dance I ever went to was my high school prom. I couldn't really go out to I only was able to go see movies with my friends my senior year of high school, and that was only because my brother started high school, and he started going out with his friends as a freshman. And then I was like, Jackie Chan face, right? Like, what do you mean? Like, my brother can go out and I can't.
So real though.
You know, and like, I get it. You know, they wanted to protect me because I'm a daughter and, you know, they're scared of pregnancy and stuff. But like, come on, dudes. Like, so, yeah, it's just too much, I think.
No, I feel that. My parents will still be like, oh, your brother's going? Okay, fine. You guys can go. Like, have fun.
Right?
But, like, if I go by myself, they get a little worried. They're like, oh, where are you going? Like, how long are you going to be out? Da, 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 da. And I'm just like, mind you, like, I kind of understand it. Part of it is that whole aspect of, like, I'm their daughter. They want to be protective. But my parents have also seen some shit. So, like, they're kind of, like, very protective and slightly helicoptery. But
yeah,
I've figured out the dynamic of like how to keep them at bay, which is really just if I communicate well enough with them what's going on, they won't bother me the whole time I'm out. Like if I give them like, hey, here's one of my friends' like phone numbers, like here's where we're going, here's how long I'll be out. If I'm late, I'll text you. Like then they're like, chill.
Yeah, I do find that like over time I've managed to like have a good sort of give and go Speaking, by the way, as a
Mhm.
male child, by the way, not even as like as a girl child, but like as a male child, I still had like strict parents, and they were like still like, where are you going? Who you're with? Like,
Mhm.
can I get one of their numbers? I haven't met this friend before. Please be back by 7. And I'm just like, I'm 35.
You're still their baby, though.
Still.
Let's
Mm.
talk
True.
just a slight comment. So I was working in Japan at the time, and I had gone home for summer break, and one of my friends who was working with me in Japan was in the same like city I was in, like Bay Area. And so I was like, oh yeah, come over, we'll go to the park or something. And like I did not realize this like since growing up, just because I never had really friends over for projects and stuff. I would go over to their house. Wow, my parents were like so racist. Like my friend is black, okay, and like I had
Oh.
this fully black man, you know, with dreads come to my house, and I was like, yeah, you know, it's my friend that, you know, I met in Japan. And I had to be like, yeah, he earned straight A's in high school, like it's fine, he's chill. But like, why did I have to even say that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then when he left, after we had hung out and he had left, my mom pulled me aside and was like, he's your friend? Why are you friends with him? And I was like, I just looked at her like, are you crazy? Like, what are you talking about right now? Oh my gosh. I don't know if you guys have had that experience with your parents, like bringing friends home and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've had exes who were like, their parents were not too happy with how dark I was, so I was on the other side of that. Like,
Oh man, that
Mm.
sucks.
No.
Luckily, I never really have issues like that. They will occasionally make a comment or something, and then I'll be like, "Hey, you realize like that's insensitive, right? Like, hey, let's not." And then they're like, "Oh." But like generally, my parents are very welcoming to people, no matter what they look like or where their background's from or any of that stuff. So I think I got pretty lucky on that front.
mm.
I feel like I
I
didn't
think-
really have much of an issue with it growing up because I honestly didn't really like people when I was a kid, so I didn't make a lot of friends. And like the people that I did end up making friends with are the people that I felt I had similar things to or similar interests, and they usually ended up being other Asians.
Yeah, I tended to just not bring people around, honestly, because I just knew what kind of parents I had. So-
I mean, yeah, like I try not to bring too many friends around just because while my parents are not like crazy racist or anything like that, they do make comments on like appearance. So like, and a lot of my friends are like tatted and like have piercings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So even though I don't know what they would potentially say to that, I just avoid bringing people around because I don't even want to know if they would say anything. It's like the preemptive fear of like, what if my parents are like worse than I thought, you know?
Wait, but were your guys' parents the type of parents that like didn't want you guys to bring friends over because they didn't want to deal with people, or were they the type of parents who are like, no, bring all your friends here so I can look over all of you guys?
Definitely the latter.
The latter.
Yeah,
The latter for sure.
Mine were definitely the didn't want me to go to other people's houses, would prefer if people came over to ours, but also didn't want to have to deal
Yes.
with them.
Yes, a little bit of all of that, yeah.
Yeah.
If it was a girl that I was doing a project with, they didn't care. But if it was a guy that I was doing a project with, I had to do it at my house.
Oh, I did not bring guys around at all.
'Cause,
If
like,
I even
if it's for
hung out with a
school-
man.
You know, like if it's for school, they had to, right? So at least they were like, you have to do your project here where I can watch you. But if it's a girl, they're like, yeah, whatever, go to her house, like go do your project. It's ridiculous.
Bro, my whole life was I can't have male friends, but I secretly had male friends. Oh god. And then now they're like, get married, and you're like, how am I supposed to flip the switch? You never like let me do that. Like it's like don't talk to boys, and then it's suddenly like find one and get married, and you fool.
I
Driving me
think like the
crazy.
biggest like thing for them like is that they don't conceptualize like, 'cause like their generation, they all met like in the workplace for the most part. Like
Yeah.
my parents met in the workplace, and I don't think that's a thing that really happens these days. Like you're not really supposed to meet people in the workplace like that.
Ooh, it's a huge like HR. You have to report it to HR, and you can't be
Yeah.
like, reporting to each other or whatever. Like it's a whole thing that they have to separate you if you are in a relationship.
Yeah.
Mhm.
My parents were
Scary.
childhood friends who got arranged together.
I kind of like that actually.
It actually works out really well for them. They have a very, very good relationship. Been married like 35, 36 years. I've lost track.
Mm.
And so, yeah. And I mean, same thing goes for like my sister and her husband. They weren't childhood friends per se, but like they've known each other since childhood.
Mm.
And then they like reconnected and then formed a relationship and got married. I'm out here struggling. I know nothing. I know nobody. I am just in my corner.
You at the risk of sounding like an old man, you're still very young, like Safi. So you got time.
Yeah.
I say that, and then people at work that are younger than me call me Unk.
Listen, those little shits.
They're like, yeah, you're ancient. I'm like, guys, I'm not even 30 yet. What do you mean? Not that 30 is ancient, by the way. That is still very young.
Yeah, no, it still is very much so.
But if you're like even close to 30, everyone's like, you're old, you're a bag of bones, and you're like, where did my value change by the time that I haven't even hit 30 yet.
I think like two things are happening here. Like the window of marriage has shifted dramatically in our timeline. Like everyone in my parents' generation used to get married like 20 to 25. But my dad got married in his 30s, by the way. So like he's already past like that sort of like wisdom.
Yeah.
But also like there's that thing then where people meet these days changed also, because back in the day you either met people like at your church / temple or at work. And nowadays you meet them on an app or at a bar, and like my parents like, oh, you're going to a bar to meet somebody, like what's gonna be the wrong kind of person? I'm like, everybody's at the bar, like what are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there is definitely like that like pressure to be like married and settled down by a certain age. Like the reason like I keep getting pressured by family is the fact that like my sister got married by like 25, 26. My parents got married like young, and like everyone in our family tends to get married like mid to early to like mid 20s, maybe barely late than that.
Yeah,
minus
girls
like maybe one
especially.
cousin
Like,
or whatever.
noticed,
Oh
like,
my god, yeah.
Yeah.
I think like one exception being like two of my cousins who got married like in their 30s, but like everyone else is like 24, 25, like very much mid 20s. So me going on 28 to my family is like, where is this husband? Where are these children? Like we want to see them before we die, and we feel like it's gonna happen soon. Like the whole like it just becomes so morbid. And then you're like, I feel so pressured right now. Like I feel like my happiness is like somehow the like main point, but it's like also completely missed, right? Like they want me to quote unquote be happy, but their form of happy is like marriage, kids.
That's
like,
so wild, because you just got out of school. Like you haven't
just
had time to like live a little bit.
And I still have one more degree at least to go. So I'm like, and mind you, not to mention like my entire life, because I was a caretaker for my grandmother and I was helping my parents left and right, I didn't really have a social life until now. So now that I have some form of a social life, my parents are like, man, you go out a lot. And I'm like, well, I didn't
meet the person I'm
before.
supposed to marry then.
Yeah, I'm like, I didn't go out before, and now I do. And even now, I don't go out like crazy often. It's like maybe a couple times a month or whatever.
Right.
But I'm like, I get it's a huge like switch that was flipped, but holy, like, how am I supposed to make friends and meet people and do things and have my own life and then be happy? But also, like, why is my happiness dependent on like having a family? Not that I don't want one,
was, you know? And
right?
They know their happiness, so if they have a framework for you to be like happy, then they kind of want you to also have that framework too. Even if
like,
they
don't get me
themselves were like
wrong.
unhappy in their own marriage, which is another story entirely. But we will.
Oh my god. Yeah.
We will not even go there.
My thing is just like, look, I would love to have a husband and like have kids. Like, trust me, it's been on my bucket list. I've had baby fever since I was like 15. Okay, I want a family, but like, I'm also not gonna push myself or pressure myself to like do something before like I think I'm ready for that.
Absolutely not.
There's a lot of steps that I have to hit before we get to the point of like having all that.
Absolutely.
No, families will be.
Go ahead, Mary.
Go. Because families honestly are like, you're not allowed to date until you're married, but we wanted you married and with kids yesterday.
Literally, bro. It makes no sense.
Rena in chat says, do you guys feel like your parents or family put these pressures on you, and does it feel like they're trying to live through you vicariously in any way?
Yeah, maybe not the marriage part per se. Sometimes maybe it depends on like situationally, but the having kids and stuff part definitely, because I feel like sometimes they feel like it's a chance for them to redo vicariously through you because they had to figure out their way. So like they try to give you the tools that they didn't have and therefore try to do right by your kids because they felt like they maybe didn't do right by you.
I have a different answer. I think I'm not their vicarious thing. I think I'm like the next iteration. I'm the iPhone 3.0 of my family. It's like
You're the
you have to.
CE.
I'm building on like what they did next, basically. Like, you know.
Yeah.
So not so much a vicarious thing. It's like we need to like build up on what, like, you can't go backwards. Basically, like, we worked so hard to get here, and you need to keep building on what you got. And you got to pass it on to like iPhone 4, Atramentum 4, basically.
Right. I think a lot of it too is that obviously, you know, we come from families that don't originate from the US, and the amount of opportunity that our parents may have had in their native homeland was not as abundant as the opportunity that is afforded to us here as children of immigrants who, like, in America, right, it's the land of the free, home, like, you know, land of plenty, home of the free. And I don't know how much it is true that these days, but the dream is definitely there for a lot of foreign families who come to America to make a life here. And so I think our parents pushing us to like excel and succeed is a part of them seeing that they didn't have these opportunities, and that, you know, they're pushing us so hard because they know what it is to go hungry, right? And they don't want that for their children.
And they don't want you to backslide either and like have a worse life than they did, you know? Just to sort of like circle back to the original question in case anyone had some thoughts on this. And definitely Mike and Mari, feel free to chime in on this. The question again was, what's some conventional thinking here about Asian families that you didn't think is necessarily true or applicable to your lived experience? Do you think it's important for Americans at large to understand this nuance? I want people to understand about my upbringing. I came from a family that is very Western, very American, very much like we have the Indian heritage and culture, but we are very much like Americanized. So like while you may see us have customs and like religion and things that seem foreign to you, like we are basically like making like American food at home and like doing American things all the time. And I think it is important to note that like the single dimensional like portrayal of Indian American families in media is not the full picture of all Indians in the US. And I always like cringe when like I see like portrayals of Indian on TV, like usually they're doctors, and then like like especially like The Resident like was like infamous for this because like that like one of the main characters is a doctor. He's like handsome, he's smart, and yada yada. And then like it's halfway through the middle of the first season, his like Indian mom comes on the show, like I forget what his name is, but she's like, "Oh, you have to be married, and like we're bringing this woman to be arranged marriage for you." I'm like, but that's just not the average experience of an Indian American man.
That's
I'm sorry.
That's like all we see on like Western digital media is like always.
Like there's also
like,
a lurking, looming mom with an
stereotypical-
arranged marriage coming for you. I'm like, no, like every single like Indian I've known has married for love. It's like met somebody. Like
literally.
yeah.
I think too, it is difficult to see how we hear about it a lot, like the emphasis on family for Asian Americans and Asians in general. You don't really get that in like a 30-minute TV show. Right? A lot of like American TV shows, whether it's focused on a white family, a Mexican family, an Asian American family, like it's very like nuclear family, mom, dad, children, maybe grandparents, right? But the emphasis on family, it's there, but it's nuclear family. When we talk about family, we're including all our aunts, our uncles, our cousins, our, I call them nieces, nephews, but like I guess in English it's second cousins.
Right.
And
Yes.
We do the same, yeah.
Like uncles and
family
aunties,
meetups
just
happen
all the
every
uncles and
week.
aunties and nieces and nephews, basically.
You know,
Yeah.
like I don't think you
Mhm.
realize how often we hang out with our families. It's like every week, like, hey, you're gonna go to, you know, Uncle Ten's house, you know, like, oh, I'll meet you
So-and-so,
there. You
yeah.
know, we're gonna play some mahjong, you know, like, oh, you know, Auntie's gonna cook this meal for us. Like, it happens
Yeah.
every week. We are always hanging out with our families and like hanging out and like catching up with each other. And so I think it's hard to see on television and in popular culture, but it's definitely there.
That's a good
Mhm.
point. Like, they don't really show like how deep the extended family goes for some Asian Americans.
Mhm.
Because like you can have a really big community as an Asian American, and some people have really
Yeah.
small ones too. Like that's also not shown sometimes, especially if you
Right.
live in like a small like area. Like if you like move like Nebraska or something, and like you run on like a hotel or something, you know.
Yeah.
We'll actually touch on this later, I think, when we talk about like sort of how the traditional dynamic of taking care of your parents has changed in America.
Mhm.
But we'll come back to it.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I did have noticed is also like in the media, a lot of times you'll see that when it comes to like Asian family portrayals, you'll see that they're very close to like traditional, or they like to keep like the traditional values and like act like stereotypical in traditional ways. But like I think what a lot of people don't realize is there are a lot of, especially like immigrant, like first generation or like mixed generation immigrant families where they are so focused instead on trying to fit in
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
that then the kids aren't as in touch with their roots.
Mhm.
Yeah, parents assimilate too, and I think like a lot of like portrayals of Asians in the media don't get that. It's always like the Asian parents are in a time capsule of the old country, or are so deep in like their own like cultural quote unquote Chinatown or Koreatown that they're not like incorporating themselves into Americanness, and like the kid themselves is like the most American. It's
Yeah.
like no,
Oh,
that
yeah.
like those parents also have like American friends and like consume American things and also like are their themselves. Like I think at a certain point when you're in your 30s, like it's very likely that your parents may have lived in this country longer than they lived in their original country.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
certainly the case for
Absolutely.
my parents.
That's the case for my parents as well. And it very much is like a case of like there are some norms here that they have accepted and that they're like a part of and like they have no problems with. And then on the other hand, there are some ideas that are so foreign to them that when you partake in them or like you do certain things, they're like, that's so American. That's so Americanized. Like you're so Americanized. And you're like, bruh, what do you mean? like sometimes, especially like when you come to like mental health and stuff like that, like the notion of holding boundaries is so new to my parents because they were like, that's so Americanized. What do you mean you need privacy? What do you need privacy for? Like like all these things, and then you're like, okay, but then they went through something and then they realized that okay, this is why boundaries are important. So now they're like trying to instill some like and are like okay with it. But like those things are foreign to them, so anything foreign to them becomes like Americanized.
Well, thank God I had privacy from an early age. I was a teenage boy and I needed it.
That must be so nice. That must be so nice.
I think the biggest thing that I've heard as kind of like a regret from Asian American children is, or children of immigrants, is that their parents had them and they learned English. And so at home, you know, they only speak
Oh, yeah.
English. And over time, they don't know how to speak their parents' native tongue. And I can see this very clearly in my family. I speak Vietnamese. Out of my siblings, I speak Vietnamese the most. My sister speaks kind of at like a lower level than me because I had started bringing English home, right? And my brother barely speaks any Vietnamese. Like he'll understand it, but he can't produce it. And so I hear a lot of from other friends who are like, yeah, I can't speak. I have to go to school to learn how to speak my parents' language when I could have just learned it at home. And I think we can't minimize how much like these Asian families are trying to assimilate into American culture by almost like erasing parts
Their
of their
culture.
language and their culture.
Mhm, mhm.
No,
Yeah.
I feel that because like I speak very fluently. Like both my sister and I are very fluent in Urdu, so like we have no problems. But that's also because like my grandmother did not speak a lick of English except for maybe like hi, hello, how are you? Like very, very like small things like that. But outside of that, like she did not speak any English. So when since we were taking care of her and like doing all these things for her, we had more constant contact, which also exposed us to the language a lot more, and therefore we learned it very fluently to the point that like it's very fluent. And then you have my brother, who's the youngest of us three, and he has a hard time. Like even when he can speak some of it, like he can speak some, but it's very like broken. Or like he has like the stereotypical like he sounds like somebody who doesn't speak the language trying to speak it, so it doesn't sound like proper. And so then, like I remember even when we went back to my parents' homeland to like visit and stuff like that, my brother got made fun of consistently because he could not speak properly at all. So if it wasn't like family members poking fun at him, it was like random strangers. Like I remember us taking like a rickshaw to go to like this beach or whatever over there. And this guy was literally making fun of my brother, saying like, what is this American package doing here? And we are like just like poking fun at my brother. Mind you, my brother was like probably like I think like 12 or 13 at the time.
Aw.
And they were like, yeah, like
Damn.
he's trying his best, man. And so like it just became like a whole thing. And so he definitely is a lot more behind. He's doing better now that he's older about it, but it's still very like kind of broken Urdu. Whereas like me and my sister are like very fluent. And that's why like we're trying to instill it in the twins that we're starting them from like now, because they're starting to speak and things like that. So we give them like a mix of like both English and Urdu, and it's kind of funny seeing them actually use it in the appropriate context. So yeah, it's one of those things.
That's what I think is like really like a good thing that we've kind of like learned recently is like it's really like within the last 10 years or so we really come to realize that like dual language and immersive learning is very important for childhood development. And like people will pay a lot of money to like teach their kids like foreign languages from a young age, but we can get that basically for free.
Yeah.
Well, not my family, we speak only English, but
Yeah.
my grandma she didn't know how to speak Hindi, but she knew how to read and write Hindi from her father, so like he taught me how to read and write Hindi, and I still know how to read and write it, but I don't understand it. But it's sort of like
Probably
a nice little
valid.
thing, like that I like, kept. I blame the British. It's their fault.
I will say I'm glad that my brother has a good understanding of it though, because even if he can't fully properly speak it, he tries his best. And then like on top of that, like it does come in handy when we need to talk about something, but like obviously I don't want to say something in English where everybody can understand it. Right. So when I like talk to him about something private, he can like fully understand me even though he doesn't speak it well enough, and he will try to respond to the best of his abilities, and then I'll like correct him like gently or anything like that to like help him figure out where he went wrong with it. Which is what we've kind of like done for years now. So I will say like his understanding and speaking of the language is much better now than it's ever been. But he's still got a lot to learn. But he'll get it over time. Like I'm not worried about it.
This question was already sort of answered, but I'm just gonna come back to it again because it will lead into another question that we have. So the question is, if you happen to have siblings, can you describe your age order and whether your parents treated you differently? Do you think this difference was cultural or something else?
I don't have any siblings, so I can't really talk on this one. Sorry.
So I'm the oldest. My sister is a year younger, and my brother is 2 years younger than me. So literally, my parents had us in very quick succession. We joke that my parents tried until they had a son, basically. And then they stopped having children. And like we used to joke that my sister was the forgotten child because like parents are always gonna love their first, and then they love their son, and then my sister was in the middle. My poor sister in the middle. But I mean, I do think they treated me differently, right? Like with the whole example of I wasn't ever allowed to go out with friends or do anything until my brother started doing the same with his friends. I think it's a combination of just me being their first child and a girl, right? Like I used to, oh my god, every time I would leave home for an extended time, like when I left for college, when I left for Japan, and when I came back home from Japan and left to live in Southern California, like my dad, every time, it was so corny. Like he would sit me down on the couch and he'd like, okay, baby girl, you know that when you leave this house, you represent our family. I got the whole talk like, you have to make us proud and don't do anything that would disappoint mom and dad. And I was like, yeah, I know, it's fine. Like, I'm not gonna do anything crazy. Like, who do you think you raised? But yeah, there was a lot of like pressure for me specifically to represent my family, and I don't think my brother or sister got any of that. Like when we were growing up, like when they went to college, did my dad sit them down? I don't think so.
Probably not. No.
Crazy.
I think in Mike's case, if you feel inclined to answer, do you think you might have been treated differently if you had an older sibling? I guess it would be the question.
Maybe any cousins that were treated differently from their brothers or sisters?
Or if you felt maybe as being only child, like you kind of had like maybe treated a little differently, or specially.
Oh yeah, I could definitely talk about just myself. Is that being an only child, I was obviously very spoiled.
There it is. There it is.
I could absolutely admit that. I was very much spoiled, but it was only to a certain extent. I grew up with my dad, so single parent, it's kind of hard regardless of like which parent you're with. So the thing that complicated it for me is I only had certain times to interact with my mother's side of the family and get in touch to that Korean side of the world. And then to further elaborate on what it's like with my cousins, so on my cousin's side, it's mostly women, and then it's like one other male cousin. And so all my uncles on my mom's side of the family look to me to like carry on like somewhat of the family legacy.
That's
I guess like so like my younger male cousin, he's just graduating high school, so the parents really aren't pressuring him to really get married and have kids, but they look to me as one to like carry on the family. It's interesting because like I don't really carry my family name. So I don't really know what they're expecting besides wanting to see like what my children would look like,
right? And
having them come over, because I'll let you know, like when I visited them a couple of years ago, like the first thing my uncles wanted me to do was take me to like the matchmakers. Like literally,
yes,
I'm in the car. They just picked me up from the train station, and they're like, are you dating anybody? It's like, no, we just broke up before I came over here. Okay, we're going to the matchmakers right now. And I'm like, you're joking, right? It's like, no, we're going there right now. And I had to look at my cousin, and she was in college at the time, and I had to look at her. It's like, you need to tell uncle to stop, because I will tell everybody here, I do not speak my native tongue anymore because I've grown out of it. I used to be able to speak Korean pretty well. It's just atrophied because I don't really have anybody to really communicate Korean with.
Right.
naturally. So I have to, unfortunately, talk to my cousins that can speak English and Korean and have them tell my aunts and uncles like what I'm trying to say. But yeah, there's huge pressure. I think they've kind of backed off a little bit because I'm not there, and they have to go through my cousins to message me about what's going on in my life because they don't really use social media that often.
So they're all in Korea?
Yeah. So like all my Korean family is in Korea. The only ones that kind of have traveled overseas are the ones that have studied abroad for like a couple years. Yeah. So my experience is vastly different. I can say that for sure.
So when you grew up with your father, is it because your mother was in Korea, essentially, if you don't mind me asking?
No, actually, so she was a U.S. citizen.
Oh.
And that's kind of like how I was still able to like keep in touch with her and see her, is that she actually stayed in the United States. So my parents got divorced in the States.
I see.
She became a U.S. citizen when they got married. But yeah, I it was kind of hard on like navigating to that. I unfortunately, my memory is so bad that like I have to look at photos to kind of remember like what our conversations were and like kind of infer about what it was like. It was so long ago. Yeah, I have a very different, very different experience. I don't know if it's very like, I don't know if it's like the most common experience to say the least, only because like I'm half Asian. Yeah.
Well, half Asian is still very much like cogent and relevant to this podcast. There are like millions of half Asian people in the United States, and they also should be heard during this month, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would definitely say my biggest regret is not maintaining connection with my Korean family. That's the one thing that I try to keep tabs, is messaging my cousins and asking the family like how are they doing and what's going on.
It is good that we live in the age that we're in right now, because, you know, if this was the 90s, you'd have a way harder time.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
You'd be buying phone cards at the corner store, basically. Getting minutes.
I still remember having to get minutes, bro.
Minutes, getting
That's
minutes, yeah.
Crazy. Bro, like Reza.com and like all that shit. Having to call back home and get like minutes, bro.
Skype was a revelation back in the day.
It really was. Thanks for making me feel like Unk now. Thank you.
All of you are unks and aunties.
I'm
all of you.
Yeah, unks and aunties for real. To touch back on like the main question, my sister is the oldest, and we have an 8-year difference. I'm the middle child, and then my brother is 6 years younger than me.
Oh right, you have a big gap in your family.
We've got major gaps.
Yeah.
But the funniest thing is like my older sister and my younger brother are more alike than ever, so I'm just like the middle odd one out. Like I get bullied from both sides of it. Like there is no freedom for me. Like my sister and my brother gang up and make fun of me all the time. But yeah, we all have like major age gaps. And as far as like treatment, I definitely notice like differences. So like my brother's the only boy and he's the youngest, so he's the baby. So like he gets away with a lot more. Like when I was younger, my sister and I, we couldn't really like do sleepovers or hang out with our friends like for long periods of times. He can like go on sleepovers and hang out with the guys until like midnight and do like whatever. And stuff like my sister and I were like confined to chores. He really only had to do dishes, and even then my mom would sometimes be like, that's your job, and then I'd be like, actually he needs to learn these things, it's important. And then also like I think when it came to my sister, there would be things where they would be like, oh, she's older, like you have to let her do these things. Like for instance, I'll give you like a really small example that's gonna sound really stupid, but like who could sit in the front seat, like call shotgun or whatever in the car. And my sister would always get like the passenger seat because she's older. But now that it's me and my brother, oh, he's younger. Let him have it. Like, da, 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 da. So
Yup,
either way,
yup.
I'm like, what happened? What happened to? Oh, she's older. Let her have it.
He's a
Like,
boy,
now
that's
that
why.
I'm older, he gets it. So like, it's stuff like that where like I notice the little like things, and I'm just like, brother, I get it no matter what. With her, it's that she's older, and I have to be respectful. And then on the other hand, he's a baby. He's younger. I should be the older sister and sacrifice and give things up and
Classic
the
middle
whole
child.
shebang. Yeah. So I'm like, so you're telling me I'm screwed no matter which way I go?
Basically.
Like, fun.
That's so funny.
I did not ask for this.
Yeah, in my case, like, I'm the older one by 4 years, and he is the baby, and he still is the baby, and he gets away with a lot of stuff because he is the baby. But I've kind of sort of grown out of it, like, because I don't want to be babied anyway, and that's my own trauma, but it's another story entirely. But
It's another
Yeah.
therapy session.
that's an
That's a
that's an
great
entirely
question. Do you
other
think-
therapy session.
Do you think you act like now? Do you think you act like the the order in which you were born?
Yes, yes.
You do.
And if you want to see that manifest, look at any collab I'm in.
That's true.
I give
I don't know,
older
I feel
child
like
energy all the
as
time.
the eldest child, like this actually happened. I was walking out with my sister, and I think I had met up with a friend who didn't know I had a sister. And when we met up, they were like, "Oh, is this your older sister?" And my sister just looked at me like, like, "Whoa, can you believe someone thinks you're younger than me?" But it's because my sister gives off the air of like someone who's super responsible. She's a firefighter, for God's sake, you know, like
That's
she's super
wild.
prepared, like overthinks
Dang.
everything.
Okay.
And like me, I think now because of how much pressure I had growing up and how much I was expected to just learn it myself, I feel like I've become the complete opposite, where it's almost like learned helplessness. Like I encounter something and I'm like, okay, can someone figure this out for me, because I'm lost here. And I want to be babied by the people around me, because I guess I never got it a lot when I was growing up.
I have an example. It's the worst example, but it's like the same reason that powerful men go to like be dominatrixes. But, like, yeah.
I mean, what about you, Mayari? You said you in your family are kind of like the eldest 5 generations.
Hey,
Yeah, but the pressure to have a daughter. Oh my god. Anyway, I think I've had like kind of the stereotypical experience in the sense that, you know, my parents were stricter with me than they are with my siblings, because obviously we're like in uncharted territory. We're still trying to get like settled here in America, and then I'm like kind of like the guinea pig testing out the waters. And once they find out like, oh, it's fine, we can give the siblings a little bit more of a longer leash. But I think going back to what Princess said about like her being seen as like the younger one, I've always like also been like viewed as like the like people think I'm younger than like my sister. But I think part of that is because like me growing up being you know how like they say like the eldest child is also like a third parent.
yes.
Yeah.
My like I guess my parenting style, I guess, was basically just like making sure everybody else has like their piece of the cake before I do. So I'm often viewed as like I'm really quiet. I let I think it's called also like, you can kind of see it here too. I kind of like letting other people have like their piece first before I say my piece. And like a lot of people kind of assume that like that means like I'm shy, and I don't want to talk, and so people have always viewed me as like younger or like the baby. But it's kind of interesting because as the oldest cousin, also what I've noticed is one of my aunts, my godmother actually, she also is an immigrant, but all her kids were born here. So, and like we're super close, and she actually like asks me a lot, like, hey, like she asked me like questions about like, is this okay? Like my kids are like acting this way. What do you think this means? And like she would just like ask me like my opinion, and I'd obviously try my best to answer for them. And like that's the only time I actually feel like the eldest.
Like I definitely picked up on that energy from you, and like I kind of identify with it too, because it's like a sort of thing that I've had to fight. Because like even like when I'm playing games with people, like when it comes to like power ups and stuff, I'm like, okay, you take it first. Like you buff yourself first. Like I can be back here. Like I'm good. You take it. You know, basically, like I have the same kind of like feeling about like other people.
Yeah, like making sure everyone else is taken care of first.
Yeah, exactly.
Right on.
Exactly.
I definitely have a dynamic a little bit more IRL as well, just because like having to be like a caretaker for my grandmother, and then like also having to cater to like just family in general, and then also making sure like, hey, like my older siblings good and like my younger siblings good, and just kind of making sure everybody like is good to go. So, kind of like the same way you're saying like how like the last one to take the cake, right? Like same principle. Where like I always make sure like IRL that all my family members are like good to go and taken care of before I ever do anything. Just because I've always kind of had that instilled in me from like a really, really young age, and especially like I said, having like the factor of like caring for my grandmother and stuff like that.
It's also a really good virtue. I really like having that virtue, honestly. It's good to take care
Yeah.
of people.
Mm-hmm.
I think we live in a very selfish society, honestly.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a
agree.
really interesting contrast to see because like societally, it's like the norm that a leader is supposed to be like super assertive
Right.
in a sense, but like in other cultures or even just like personal values, sometimes like a leader is like just making sure everybody else like we're looking after everybody else.
Yeah, why can't the leader like take care of everyone's collective welfare?
Yeah, if you want to be a true alpha, you have to have a purse with like snacks and water.
Yeah.
No, honestly,
Gotta take care of your
yeah.
pack,
Backup
basically.
charger.
I'm gonna be the auntie that walks around with like Werther's and like those little strawberry candies in her purse.
Alpha auntie.
Like I got
Those
you.
are the best.
But no, definitely it's a very good virtue to have. Which is it feels so weird to me sometimes because I'm so used to it. It's like basically like my first instinct, right? And so it's normal for me. But it's really weird when I like do stuff that is like thoughtful like that, and then people like will be like, "Oh my God, you're such a good like granddaughter. You're such a good daughter. Like you're such a good this. You're such a good that." Like I couldn't really do that, and I'm just like, what? Why are you like complimenting me for like just being thoughtful to people I care
Yeah, being
about?
considerate and thoughtful and nice. Like what?
Yeah. Like I had a coworker that was like, we all went to Comic-Con, and the whole time when I was with them, like I was going to every booth to kind of like see what I wanted to buy, but every time I would end up buying something for my brother. Like it'd be like, oh, he'd love this, and then I'd like pick it up, and then I'd like do that at like every booth to the point that I didn't buy anything for myself at all. Everything I bought was for my brother.
Aw, you're good, sis.
And I try my best.
Aw.
And so then I remember my coworker being like, "I love that about you. You're such a good sister." And I was like, because I thought about my brother and I bought him stuff. Like, I don't know. That's normal for me. When I go to the store, I think of what everyone's gonna want.
But look
and
at
then I'll get them
American
what
like
they
media
want.
though. American media is like, "Ugh, I hate you, big sis. Oh, I hate you, little bro." Like,
Yeah. Like, and don't get me wrong, like we have our moments. We'll be like, I'm sure every like siblings like do. We
Of
always
course.
have moments where we're at each other's throats, and other moments like where like only I can bully them. Back off. Like, and like, you know, being thoughtful about them and things like that. And generally me and my siblings are very, very close to especially because like in my family we did have like different dynamics with like my cousins and stuff, and like just the way that things ended up generally going after a lot of like family drama and other things. So my main like family, like my siblings and my parents, are like all that I have. So that very much instilled like a, hey, we need to stick together type of like mentality. Like we are all we have. So we always kind of think of each other and like what the other person would want, and like make sure to like care for each other and protect each other and like all that stuff.
It's a good way to live, honestly. I really like that.
I agree.
That actually segues really nicely into my next question. In sort of a less positive way. Outside of your nuclear family, have you ever felt the pressure to conform to certain behavior or norms from your community? Quote unquote, the auntie effect.
Yeah. There's definitely like a lot of that in especially when it comes to like the Desi community.
Oh yeah.
Like aunties will always be in your business. There was this auntie at our church, and like mind you, growing up, I was a very chubby kid, and mind you, there were underlying health issues that I didn't realize until like I was going in for like emergency surgery when I was like 17. Like it was a whole thing, right? But to them, I was just the fat kid, right? Like, so every time that I would come to the church, like all the aunties would be talking to me about how I need to lose weight and like sticking their nose in my business.
Grab your tummy.
Oh hell no! Yeah, they had no problems, bruh.
Yeah.
And then I remember there was one auntie specifically whose child was also very chubby like me, but her daughter lost weight by joining multiple sports and like exercising all the time. And I remember she'd be like, next time I see you, you have to be enrolled in 3 different sports. Like 3 different sports.
Whoa, what the fuck?
And she said this to me more than once, by the way.
Oh,
like every time I saw her, like, did you join any sports yet? Mind you, I was a very active child, but little did any of us know that I had an underlying health issue that was causing the problem that was happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone would just have this like thing where they were like, you're gaining too much weight, like you need to lose weight. And I'm like, I'm active, like I'm trying, I barely eat, like what do you want from me? And it became to the point where like aunties would just always be in my business about it. And I stopped going to church. I was like, well, you know, I can't deal with you people. Like, you people either act over familiar and try to get into my business, or if I try to do anything, you look at me funny. Like, I never feel like a sense of belonging. I always feel like an outcast.
I always felt that way about my temple too, absolutely.
Yeah, and then when you don't show up, then they're like asking your parents, like, "Oh, where is she? How is she? How's she doing?" And I'm like, "You just want the gossip. You just want the tea. Like that's all you're asking for.
You want the chai.
Like you want the metaphorical chai. Yeah, like auntie, go home and make it. I don't know, man. Look in your own closet because there's plenty there. Like."
No, that's so real. Like they judge you for not being there. They judge you for being there. Like, if you're not there, they notice it. If you're there, they notice it. And they always have something to say about what you're doing or how you look. It's a lot, you know?
And then more than anything, I think it really, really, really upset me when they started doing that kind of stuff to my siblings. So, like, I remember my sister, like, was, like, getting ready to go get married. And she had so many aunties tell her that you need to lose weight before you go over there and get married because you're not going to look good up on the stage as a fat bride.
Oh my god.
And when I found that shit up, like when I found out
if the words fat bride ever come out of your mouth, you just get smacked in the face, honestly.
Oh, bro, I was shaking. I'm like, how are you going to sit there and actively say that to somebody? Like, you want to find a reason to upset her because she's successful. She's getting married, and it's not some sort of like arranged marriage out of, you know, like necessity. It's she found love with this person. She has a genuine like love marriage and like all these other things that you wish that you could have or that your kids could have. And because you see that she's successful, you need to find one thing to like knock her down a peg. Like,
yeah, it's ridiculous.
It makes me so mad. Oh yeah, they were not on the guest list. Yeah, no. No. They definitely won't be during mine. So.
Definitely interested in hearing what the rest of you feel about this. I would say my experiences are pretty close to Safi's. it was kind of hurtful because like my brother kind of like was more in tune with the community and like everyone else, so they kind of like wedge between my brother and I. They'd be like, "Oh, well, your brother doesn't come out to these things, and he doesn't do like how you come out and hang out with us, whatever it is." And I'm like, "Well, because like I know how catty and bitchy y'all can be, especially because like you know I'm the weird one who's in like I have different interests and I have different friends. My friends are like East Asian and like not Indian, not most of the time too, and like you don't like that about me and yada yada." So like it was a whole thing like that. I just really didn't get along with them, Like I was feeling constantly judged all the time by them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like so, like okay, I had mostly these kinds of friends, so they like, oh, that's Atramentum. He hangs out with the Chinese kids. I'm like, that. Well, my like what? for reference, chat. My high school was 70% East Asian, so like those were my friends. I didn't go to the local high schools, so like everyone was judging me for that. And that just constantly drove a wedge between like my cousins who lived in the neighborhood versus like me who was like going off to another borough to go to school basically. And like I was listening to K-pop and I was like eating noodles in Chinatown with my buddies, and they're like, "Oh, ew, why are you eating that?" Like they eat dogs and cats and blah, shit like that basically. So like I just constantly like felt more and more like estranged from them, and my brother was not. And to this day, like that sort of still is like the boundary that I have with them. I'm like, y'all were just really judgy, and like I don't really believe you when you say you want to like get to know me, That was an aside.
I think when I was younger, there was this pressure to conform. I don't know. Yeah, definitely body image. Even now is still like a very big thing. It's like, a lot of my self-worth is tied to like how I look, how thin I am, like how much I'm eating. And it's just from like years of like my mother and my aunts and uncles like commenting on my body just because it's a very normal thing to do, right? Like, because like in my family at least, like the way to say that I love you is like, "Oh, have you eaten?" Right? But then how do you expect a child to grow up and not like eat food if you're always asking, "Have you eaten today?" Right? Like,
True.
but that, and when I was in college and when I was dating someone, I thought I had to date a man who was like going to become a doctor, who was going to earn a lot of money, and get married, have kids. And then I think like one day I was just like, why? Like, why do I want all of this for my life? And then I kind of thought about it. I was like, is this what I want? Because the more I thought about it, the more I was like, this is what my family expects of me, like my parents, and this is what my aunts and uncles expect of me. Because just like Safi, right, and her family, where you get married when you're in your 20s, and I was in my mid-20s, and I was having this crisis. I was like, is this what I want? Like, do I want to go back from Japan and marry my boyfriend who's in America and have kids with him? And I was like, no, like, actually, this isn't what I want. This is what my parents want for me. This is what my greater community wants for me. And then I was just like, I'm not ready. And so I can't. Oh god, it was so scary. I was moving back from Japan to America, and in my head, I was thinking, please do not propose to me at the airport.
Oh no.
This man was picking me up in the airport, and I was like, please do not propose to me, because like at this point we were dating for like 6 or 7 years now, long term, half of it long distance, and I was finally moving back to America, and in my heart of hearts, I was like, oh my god, please do not do this to me. He did it. It was great, and then I broke up with him. So...
Wait. So he did propose?
No, he didn't.
He
Thank
did.
God.
Okay,
He did not.
okay.
Yeah, and then I broke up with him like the week after. So
6 years. Yeah. You kind of make a choice at that point.
But yeah, so I think after that moment of like crisis, when I realized like, oh, I'm only dating this person because my family expects me to, because my community expects me to, and then to hit these milestones in life, get married, have kids, buy a house, I was like, but why? And like the more I examined myself, and the more I realized like this isn't what I want out of life, you know? Like I can create a life for myself that is separate and apart from what my family desires for me. And I think from that moment on, I was just like, I don't need to do this. Like, what's the point to make other people
Yeah.
happy, you know, if I'm unhappy?
I feel like sometimes our value is inadvertently tied to like the ability to create a home and follow those like
Yeah.
traditions.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, but it's the only way they kind of know. It's like the blueprint, and like
yeah.
it's hard to like prove there's another blueprint out there.
Right, right.
And like I kind of like talked about this like a couple of days ago, because like I kind of didn't follow the blueprint, and then I kind of did at the end. Whereas like I didn't like you know, I was a kid who liked history and like writing and like, you know, geography, and like I studied those things, but then I just circled right back around to like accounting and finance basically, but for like nonprofits. So like I kind of like did things my own way, but ended up back in like what my parents wanted basically. So like someone I remember in chat was like, "Oh, so you just rebelled within the boundaries?" I'm like, "Yeah."
That's
I
crazy.
didn't do it, but I kind of did it.
My rebellion's not working for Morgan Stanley, I guess. Lord. Whoop. Sec. Lost my question sheet. Yeah, so I know Mike mentioned sort of the familial pressure from his family in Korea when he does have contact with them. But did you sort of have any pressure here in the US, like, you know, growing up from your your family, either in Korea or from your mom? Or was that sort of like a non-factor for you?
I don't know, man. Now, see, now I have to do like a Jimmy Neutron brain
it's
blast
spotty,
to try and
yeah,
remember.
okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's spotty from what I can remember. Most of it is what I kind of said previously, is that there was pressure to get married. Oh, this is something that was interesting. So Koreans have like a complicated history, right, with the peninsula and our
Right.
neighbors, and so my family is, I would say my aunts and uncles are very like traditional, like you need to marry a Korean woman, and I'm like, that's great, but we've moved into the 21st century now, and we're not you know, staying with those stigmas and stereotypes from the past. So that was something that like my mom very much pushed for, is she wanted me to marry someone that was Korean. And I will say this, I think it was a very closed-minded approach. I think my uncle and my aunt, I've kind of explained to them, like, you know, the person I'm dating now isn't Korean, but she's great, she's wonderful. She's Viet, and she's Vietnamese slash Chinese, and we get along great. Her family is very welcoming, but I think from her family's perspective is they're just happy she's dating someone that's of Asian ethnicity.
Right.
So they're happy with that. But me trying to meet their expectations has been like very interesting, because it's a different culture. So like I am doing my best to kind of integrate myself into like some of their expectations and their cultural norms.
If you don't mind me asking, how does she sort of square that expectation with like her own lived experience, not sort of like marrying a Korean man?
So it very interestingly, like, not to like give away too many specifics, but
Right.
you know, from what my understanding is that the dynamic that she had when she was growing up, like her family is very traditional. Like her parents and grandparents came from Vietnam, so like they're first gen, but she grew up in the United States. They're very traditional, very much set in like their ways. And so like having my experience where like my growing up was like very American. Like I will like I said, I'm half Korean, but I'm very much more American than I am Korean. So it's interesting to try and have like work within their expectations, and then also she's trying to help them see that like, look, he's different, but it's a good different, right? It's like he's not necessarily like the traditional Vietnamese boyfriend or whatever that is, because I'm not familiar with what those expectations are, but I'm trying
Right.
to like integrate and learn what their culture is. And I'm trying to learn the language as well, because just gonna say this, like, daddy's little girl, like her dad I get the feeling he's not he's not that interested in me as a person. I do my best, but I understand like that's his one and only daughter. I completely
Right.
understand it.
Yep.
And she has
Understood.
she has two brothers, and she's the middle child, and so like that does complicate things as well. I am rambling. I don't know if I answered your question, because I am all hyped up on soju tonight.
Same. I got the
I can
mango
tell
one.
you this: the situation is maybe not 100% the same, but my ex that I dated in college, he was Korean, and my parents like absolutely loved him. So I don't think it was like a matter of like your race. As long as you're polite, respectful. My parents like loved my ex, and I don't know. I don't talk to them, but I think maybe they think sometimes about having him as a son-in-law.
Oh, that's gonna be a little difficult. I can kind of understand that as well.
Yeah.
I think her parents have some of that as well. Some of those things of like, oh well, don't you remember so and so? That's a family friend.
Right.
And meanwhile, I'm sitting there like in the same room listening to this conversation. Like, bro, I'm right here.
Your
Like,
heart.
I'm right here. I'm dating her. Come on, man. Really?
This was like, are you sure about this one?
Yeah, I think it takes a couple years, right? But like with time, as long as you make her happy and you respect them and their relationship with her, I think like parents come around.
Yeah.
Maybe it takes a little bit longer than usual, but I think they do come around.
I think her mom likes me because she cooks me food to take home. So
Oh yeah,
that's a good sign.
100%.
Very good sign.
Yeah,
I think that's a good sign.
Yep.
Now, granted, I do bring back some chocolates and some snacks because like I'm a very poor cook. I'm still learning.
You gotta get your game up.
I do. I know. I'm working on it, my guy.
Yep,
I got my own nice rice cooker finally. I have my own like
Mochi.
Korean hot pot. Yeah. Yeah, I'm working on it.
So by the way, chat, this podcast generally goes for about 2 to 2.5 hours, so we're getting close to that time. So if you've got any questions for our panel, please get them in now. There's an anonymous question link up top, and you can also get them in chat. Both myself and Princess will be asking questions for the remainder of the pod as well. I'll give Princess a chance to ask a question in a tiny bit, but before we get to that, I'm going to ask this one. And it's about sort of your parents getting older. So it's a bit less about like the dating and career stuff, but the question is, traditionally the expectation is that Asian kids will take care of their parents in their old age. Do you have the expectation on you, and how are you preparing for this eventuality? If not, have your parents adjusted to a more quote-unquote American mindset on retirement? And what I mean by that, I'm talking Social Security and retiring to Florida, retirement communities, all that good stuff, nursing homes, yada yada.
I cannot contribute to the answer of this question.
Do you want to maybe elaborate a bit more on sort of your situation, Princess, if you want to share? Or
Oh yeah. So I think my community knows, but my sister is gay. She came out back in 2017, which is basically the last time I had like a full conversation with my parents. I've seen them here and there at family parties, at funerals, but I very much, avoid them. And it's because when my sister came out, my dad literally was like, we need to have a family meeting, and you need to break up with your girlfriend. She was dating at the time, and he was like, you need to break up with your girlfriend, or you can leave this house. Because she had moved back in, not because she needed to, by the way, just because she could see around the house that our parents needed help taking care of, you know, the dog and the house and getting it clean. And my mother, like the next day, had pulled me aside and was like, "You need to talk to your sister because you are the eldest, and you know she will listen to you because you're her older sister.
Oh, Lord.
This is not, yeah." And she was basically saying like, "This is not how we're supposed to live. You know, girls are supposed to marry boys. Blah blah blah." And I basically told my mom, I was like, "You like, listen. I know that you grew up in a different time, but you need to accept my sister for who she is because she had moved out once before, right? And she knows that she can support herself. And so you need to recognize that what you're doing will only push her further away." And at the time, I basically revealed to my mom, I was like, "I don't really go home that often because when I was younger, like in high school, I had wanted to go the creative path. Like Mike's parents, his dad maybe would have been great for me. I wanted to go in like a very creative path. I wanted to do like fashion design. I wanted to do illustration. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I definitely knew it was like in a more creative industry than, you know, what I was forced to go with, which was international studies, like politics.
Really?
And it was because at the time my parents had found out what I wanted to do for college, what I was applying for, and they pulled me aside and they were like, "You can change your major or you can leave this house. Like, we'll kick you out."
Jesus.
I was 17. What was I
the fuck?
supposed to do? Right? And so I told her, I was like, "Look, my life at that point in time drastically changed because I had to shift, right?" And so I told her, I was like, "I don't know. I live with a lot of regret, and nowadays I try not to live with any regrets. Like I'll try to do the thing and be disappointed rather than just wonder, like that what if like drives me insane." And my mom 8 years ago was like, "Well, you were a smart girl. You would have figured something out." And I think like that just like broke something in, like, you know, that small part of you where you think like, "Oh, you know, I'm a child, so my parents will always love and protect me." I think that just broke inside me, and I was like, "What do you mean? Like, you were my parents. You were supposed to protect me, and you were supposed to take care of me." And so I think at that moment in time, I just cut contact with my parents. Plus, also, I told her, I was like, my sister will live a lot longer than you, right? And I support my sister. I stand by her. And like even now, oh my god, just like this past Mother's Day, my sister called me and she was like, "I don't know if I should go visit mom for Mother's Day." And I was like,
No.
"If you don't want to, don't do it." And it was because she told me like back in November, my sister had talked to my mom about her girlfriend. She had you know, basically floated the idea like, "Hey, I really want you to meet my girlfriend because I'm thinking about marrying her." And my mom goes like, "No, I just want you to come home." And my sister goes, "But like, what about my wedding? Like, won't you come to my wedding?" And my mother tells her to her face like, "No, if you get married to a girl, I'm not gonna come to your wedding."
My god.
And yeah, so I mean, it just really like for me solidified the fact that like I just don't want to be involved in that. From time to time I'll call my dad, right? My dad seems pretty chill. Like he is still very much like open and like accepting of the idea of my sister. He's changed since then, right? I think he's softened a bit because he understands that like literally that week that my sister came out, and when my parents were like, you know, "You can break up with her or you can leave the house," he did the same thing to my sister. She packed everything. The day that they went to work, she literally packed out her room, had her friends help her, and she left. And I think my parents, at least my dad, understands that like, you know, our children are adults now and they can decide if we are in their lives or not. So I think my dad has softened a lot more to the idea, which like I'm open and still talking to my dad from time to time. It's one phone call a year. And he's like, "How are you doing?" And I'm like, "Good, Dad. How are you?" Same old, you know, and then we hang up and like there's nothing to talk about, you know? So that's why like when it comes to these conversations about, you know, like taking care of parents, I honestly sometimes feel like there's something wrong with me. Because the people around me are always so close to their parents and they have this like relationship with their parents, and sometimes I'm like, why can't I have that? But I think I've just come to terms with like families are all different, and I think as adults we are definitely equipped with the tools to establish boundaries, and at some point we also have to understand that, you know, our parents are also on their own journeys. They are also adults, and they have the same tools and access to resources that we do, because we live in an age where you can like learn about anything. And if they really wanted to, there are plenty of Vietnamese articles out there where, you know, like they could go get help. Or like educate themselves.
And
So
there's nothing wrong with you putting up that barrier, because like that's like an insane amount of like resistance to like your child like telling you that they love a person, honestly.
right.
And
Yeah.
you know, you telling me like you had such a painful experience at a young age, like being told that you can't do this thing that you like because you'll be thrown out of the house, like that is a hard thing to tell a child. And like I get that our parents tell us hard things when we're younger, and like those things do stay with us, because I know my mother tells me hard things that were told to her as a child as stay with her for 40-50 years. I get that.
Right.
But man, like at a certain point, like something's got to give, and if they hurt you in such a hard way, even if your sister doesn't feel the hurt in the same way that you do, like you're still the eldest.
She feels it.
Yeah.
I feel like she feels it, but she's very much like, I think she feels obligated because I've now left the family, right, essentially. And my brother does not do it. He lives at home. He doesn't pay rent. Like, he makes money. He makes good money. But he doesn't, like, this is an example. My sister asked him what he was doing for Mother's Day, and he was like, oh, I'm gonna, you know, like, take her out to dinner. She paid for half the dinner anyways. My sister came down. Like, she lives an hour and a half away. And even though my mom has been like so, you know, not accepting, she still paid for half my mother's dinner and bought her flowers for Mother's Day. My sister feels great responsibility because I've stepped away, and she feels like it falls on her shoulders to now take care of them. And I keep telling her, I was like, I know you're going to therapy, and maybe your therapist is talking to you about this, but you also need to be more firm with your boundaries, you know?
Your sister sounds like an exceptional person, honestly, but
she's like a superhero, honestly.
Literally a superhero. Yeah. I don't think I'd be anywhere half as much of a person as they are.
Yeah, she's very kind, she's very forgiving, and way better of a person and daughter than I am.
But but you still have to you have to do what's good for you. You have to do what
it's true,
gives you peace, honestly.
Yeah.
So funny you mentioned, Princess, about the wanting supportive parents and such like that. So here's the flip side to the story. He may have been supportive of that, but it doesn't mean that I naturally was really accepting of the other aspects of him. So I've had very, very tumultuous times with my father, and to where like we weren't talking for like 8 months when I was in college. And we worked through it, but it was a lot of, let's just say he grew up in the South and he has some very old tendencies that he has to work through.
Oh boy.
And it's very fascinating to me of like some of the life experiences he's had. He's not like gotten over a lot of those things that he deals with. And so like I've had a lot of arguments with my dad, even though he's been very supportive. I have my issues. I have some of my umbrage with him and some of his expectations. You know, the biggest thing, like he did end up supporting me getting a career in design, but he was very much against it initially. Like I had to do the research and show him like, this is a viable career path. Like this can work. Because at first, you know, it was very hard because like all throughout my life, I've been doing art, you know, doing music, doing all these creative endeavors as a kid. He very much supported it. And then all of a sudden, when I wanted to get a degree in design, no longer supportive, right?
Yeah, it's like, oh, you want to make a career out of that?
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
I
and it's
see,
just
I
like,
see.
yeah, and he's like, I thought you were gonna go. Here we go, mechanical engineering, because like
Oh
I
my
thought I was,
God.
yeah, I originally was gonna go for engineering because I thought I was good at math. I took the math aptitude test, and I was like, I'm not as good as I thought I was. And I was like, I'm not really interested in this. I want to do design. Like I really like design, problem solving, and stuff like that. And I had a lot of arguments back and forth to convince him, and I wholeheartedly agree. And it may have a cultural tinge to it depending on where your parents come from, but there's absolutely the right tools and the right information for people to be out there for them to understand different perspectives, different cultures, different ideas, and then also just understand that, like, one of his terms, or one of his ideas, is like, it's only a word. It has no meaning behind the meaning that you put behind it. It's like, that's great. How about the idea that if it's only a word, why do you have to say it?
Yeah.
How
Mhm.
about that, right? Like, why? I get the whole fanaticism of the word only has power if you give it power, but there's also the idea of like, how about you just don't use the word? How about that?
Yeah, if it's not
Like,
important, right? Like if it doesn't mean anything, yeah, you could just take it out of your vocabulary.
exactly. And that was like, I was like going back and forth on it out with him, and he just did not understand. And it just, yeah. So, I can kind of relate to like the idea of just not talking to your parents for a while. Yeah, it's rough. I mean, I managed to rebuild it, but there was a lot of compromising that had to happen for that to. But I do absolutely feel empathy for your sister, because she should not have been treated that way at all.
Yeah. I do tell her often, like I'll call her and catch up with her, and I do tell her often to remind her, like, everyone in this situation is an adult, and she needs to understand that at some point, even our parents have to be responsible for their decisions, whether or not, that is like, that causes consequences in their life. She can't pay for those consequences. They have to. So.
Absolutely. It's always so funny to me when like I like tell my other friends like about like I complain naturally about my parents, and they're like, just move out, just cut them off. I'm like, are you fucking insane? What are
No,
you talking
what?
about?
Dude,
Exactly.
hearing
Yeah.
that growing up was like so insane to me, because people would say that all the time. They're like, "Oh, you should move out. You should get your own place. You should like they can't treat you like that.
Yeah,
Like
like
yada
in
da
this
da da
economy,
da
number one.
da."
Exactly.
Yeah.
I will tell you, it is so hard. Like having to basically break off from my immediate support of like the scary part of breaking away from my parents was, what if I get into some crazy accident and need financial support?
Mm-hmm.
God forbid it happens, but I have a healthy savings to like, float me for a bit. But it is a very real fear, as someone who is disconnected from her family now. Like, the fear of financial ruin should something happen to me is so real. Like,
Yeah.
I'm all I have in life.
You're
I'm
by
not dating
yourself.
anyone.
It's you and Hermes.
Yeah, it's just me and my dog.
Yeah.
Forging our path through life.
And like Hermes is cute and all, but I don't think he can work for it. There's not a lot of jobs he can do.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a lot to like break away from your family, especially if you rely on them in some way. Like a big one is financially, especially in today's day and age with how bad the economy is. Like, it's rough.
Absolutely.
Most of us don't even have a plan for our own retirement, let alone trying to take care of our parents.
Right.
Mhm.
Exactly. It's hard to like
And I'll-
imagine a future
Mhm.
in which like you can provide for them entirely the way that like
Yeah.
it's envisioned, like you're supposed to.
Mhm. Yeah.
Hmm.
Lipton says, I think that's the only thing keeping in contact with my pugs, which sucks, but it is what it is. Exactly. Like, you can never really truly be alone. And, like, if you do manage to cut them off entirely, like, more power to you. There are so many people in this world that have to do so for whatever reason. Whether it's because of, like, the way you identify or who you love, or, like, for other much more darker reasons. And we
Yeah.
see you and we hear you.
You're not
But
alone.
yeah, and you're not alone. But like, there's also so many people who just like are sort of in the middle, like in
Mhm.
which you just wish they could be better, but they're just from a different time, different culture, different experience, and they just will not change. That's you're just kind of like stuck being where they're at, essentially.
It's just ingrained in them from the get-go, and
Right.
like what they learned in the direct result of their environment and their like teachings and things like that.
We are living with people who are self-selected to sort of be set in their ways, because like these are a set of people who have decided to like leave where they have been their entire lives, come here, and like build something on their own. Like, it's not to say that like Vietnamese people are this way, or Korean people or Indian people are this way. It's specifically those Korean people or those Vietnamese or those Indian people that we come from that have like that sort of mindset, and like that's what people need to
Yeah.
understand about like the API community. Like, it's not that Asians are inherently studious, or that we're inherently like good at like math, or like inherently conservative, or inherently like inclined towards business. That's kind of the people who come to America, honestly, and like I think people don't really understand that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I really think that's like something that people like, especially when it comes to like the model minority myth. It's like, yeah, it seems that Asians are very successful, but that's because like between 1960 to like the 80s, only people who are kind of successful themselves can immigrate here in the first place. Yeah, the dynamics changed a little bit since then.
Plus, there's
yeah.
like also a common misconception too. Like back home, for instance, I'll give you like a peak example. My brother-in-law, when he married my sister, came over here. And his whole family back home just thinks he has like this amazing lavish life in America because he's in America, right? So they think like white picket fence, like rich families, like nice houses, like you're making a shitload of money and like all this stuff. And they don't really understand that when you come here, it's a whole different type of struggle bus.
Entirely
Like
different,
you're having to you know deal with all these new norms that you're not used to. That's like huge culture shock. Depending on how much family you have over here, like the adjustment can be really difficult and like all that. So then it's like they don't understand how much goes into being here. They just think that you come here and that automatically means you hit like the fucking lottery.
Basically.
So then they're like, oh, you don't ever send anything. Like, can you send us some money? Can you send us some stuff? Like, when you come, can you bring like, we'll take like luggage full of like stuff to give people. Like, we won't even take our own clothes and stuff sometimes because we're like trying to bring stuff back for them, and then we'll just buy clothes over there to wear, like, or whatever. So like, they just have this misconception that coming here is this huge like freaking jackpot, and then they don't really notice or realize until they come here. Like when my brother-in-law's parents came here last year, they had the hardest time adjusting. They did not adjust at all. His like mom refused to adjust to the point where like she was here in the winter and she like refused to get a jacket because like almost as if like buying a jacket meant that she was committing to life here.
Oh, auntie, please.
Yeah, and so like we had to like force her into like getting these things, and like all the time she would like just try to find money to send back home to like her daughter and like all these other things because like there's like a whole bunch of things behind it, but like she always had this mentality to go back, which they literally just did like a month ago. They went back because they could not adjust. But now she has this whole idea in her head where she's gonna go back, and then like she's gonna send her husband back over here, and then he's gonna make money to send back home because my brother-in-law like refuses now because he's seen like what's going on.
Yeah, but like how old is like the husband? Like how hard is gonna work like send money home at this point?
Okay,
like,
he's almost 40, okay? And the money that they want to send back home is for like his sister, who is married, by the way, whose husband is just like a deadbeat. Like he doesn't do shit, he doesn't work.
Right. Yeah.
And instead of telling him to get off his ass, it's like, hey, you as the oldest, like, need to still provide for your family, like, type of mentality.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you don't owe people anything.
Like, in a way, it's kind of good that like, because like back in like the 80s and like 70s, 80s, like it wasn't as easy to come over here and see what it was like. Now people can just come over here pretty easily and be like, oh, it actually isn't like easy street, so to speak. I mean, most of my family is here now. Like, everyone's emptied out of Guyana and is here, and like, it legally or not. Like,
yeah,
I think maybe a third of my family is like undocumented, but like, yeah, like I remember back in the day, back in the 90s, like when my parents would go back, they would just pack it full of everything they can like possibly, every single like cranny of that suitcase that would just pack with stuff to like bring back home.
Candies,
basically.
toys, watches, perfumes, like all the things that they possibly could take. And I mean, we did that for a long time. Whenever we would go back, we would always take stuff for people, to the point that, like I said, we didn't even bring clothes for ourselves. We literally purchased clothes over there. But
no,
like,
I have noticed though, like in subsequent years, they haven't gone back in a long time, but in subsequent years, the baggage got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and now they just take like little suitcases, basically.
Little suitcases,
the
yeah, no.
misconception is because, like, I mean, even now, it's just so hard to live. Like, inflation has gone up, and like compared to maybe our parents' native country, the US dollar is quite strong. And maybe that was true in the past, but like now, when you can't even scrounge like for, you know, maybe $100, $200 extra to take home, like that doesn't convert to much when you bring it back to like the homeland, you know, like that's why
really
it's
doesn't,
just so
yeah.
difficult now. Like, it's why it's so hard for people to adjust when they come here now. It's like, oh, like, yeah, everywhere is rough, you know. But
like, I can treat you to
admit,
dinner,
you know,
basically.
yeah. The opportunities afforded to us here are, you know, a lot more than what we would be afforded back in our parents' homeland, but I mean, that's only because the dollar is so much stronger.
I will also say, like, with that, while the opportunities are definitely better and like things along those lines, there's also like some sort of stigma when you do come here, that like people start treating you differently, like as if you're not from the same place that they're from. Because your circumstances are now different than theirs are, so they have this sort of like haughty, like, oh, you're some hotshot now type of like mentality with you. Right. And then when you are thoughtful and you do bring things back, then they try to like treat you a little bit more normally. But if you stop doing that, then like, what happened to all these things you were giving me? Like, like we were over there and you're not bringing me anything now. Like, and then they start treating you weird again because you're not providing anything.
Yeah.
It's like the double side of the community thing, because like, yeah, being in a community can be very good. It can provide a lot of like shared values and a lot of like shared care, but like once you sort of like move out of that community and like are trying to bring yourself back into it, like people sort of start to make assumptions about like where you've been, what you've done, and like, you know, your circumstances essentially. And like that's always something that I've felt, basically trying to like reintegrate back into like my community. I'm like, yeah, like sure, I've been to like some pretty good schools and like I've been out there. It doesn't mean like I'm so significantly different from y'all, but you treat me so differently that I kind of don't feel like I belong here anymore. But that's an aside.
Yeah, I think because like it's a lot. Everybody, like especially with like the internet, even when we're like. We have like a lot of exposure thanks to the internet. It's still it's a still limited view. It's kind of like looking through a window, right? You can kind of see what's there, but since you haven't stepped outside, you don't get like the full picture.
Absolutely. Oh my god, do you guys remember when TikTok got banned and like everyone went to Xiaohongshu for a bit?
Yes.
And like Chinese people were making fun of Americans because Chinese people were like, yeah, our groceries are so cheap and like so healthy and nutritious, and like why are Americans spending so much money on like trash food? And Americans were like, what do you mean you guys buy it for only that much? Like, and we got a peek behind how other people in other countries live, you know?
Oh, absolutely. It's like, look at our subway. Look how clean. And then America's like, you have subways over there?
Public transportation?
Oh, yeah.
People like, week, is China like, Cyberpunk 2077? Like, no, that's a modern city.
Honestly, well, it was because like for that week we had this like unfiltered exchange of like culture from Americans and like maybe not like a subset of Chinese people, because I know
Right.
not everyone in China. It was a very specific subset of people who use Xiaohongshu in China, but like it's just we got to
Upwardly
see it for
mobile,
ourselves.
wealthy, urbanized like people. Yeah,
You know?
but yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It was definitely. I mean, it's definitely funny, and the funniest part of it too is like the government being like, "Yeah," the Chinese government being like, "Yeah, let's not have you talk to those people too much now. Let's let that off."
Can't be letting you guys know the truth out there. Heaven forbid.
It's like, no, we see what American Twitter is like. Let's not bring them in here.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
No, but like that sort of ties into the crux of the question. Like, as things get more and more difficult here to sort of provide for yourself, it is kind of hard to conceptualize a world in which you just also take care of your parents too, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that my parents are like preparing for a world in which like they are independently providing for themselves with their like, you know, properties and investments and retirement income and social security and yada yada. And I don't particularly feel like a monetary responsibility to take care of them, but I do consider like what happens if they become unable to like take care of themselves physically. Like, do you hire them a nurse aide or do you take care of them yourself? Because the answer back in the day is you take care of them yourself. But like,
Right.
I'm increasingly seeing like people in my community, they just hire a nurse aide, and I wonder like what's the choice that I'd make, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And we
I think,
can't...
like-
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go for it. Go for it.
Well, I was just about to say, you can't really downplay how hard and difficult it is to be someone's caretaker,
Right.
right? Because it
Mhm.
is very, like, emotionally, mentally, and physically, like, difficult on you, especially if it's someone you know, like, and love and care
Mhm,
for.
mhm.
Yeah.
Dude, there was this post on Twitter. I apologize for mentioning Twitter twice in like 5 minutes, but
Brain rot.
there was a post on Twitter of like this anime guy and like his girlfriend in a wheelchair, and like the post was like, "Men want only one thing,"
Oh, I saw this.
and then it's like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
okay, how many men are actually emotionally available and ready to take care of a disabled like person, like emotionally and physically able to do that? Like the number is very tiny. All the guys like
Yeah.
reposting this, like you like the
Yeah.
idea of it. You're not actually prepared to do this for somebody.
And the whole thing too, I think the crux of it is like you want someone like wholly dependent on you, and it's honestly a little bit disgusting. Like,
Mhm.
you know, like women are not toys for you to pick up and put down. You know?
Right.
True.
Like, I'm sorry, like, until you wipe her butt, I don't believe you. I'm sorry.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
It's very true.
Because, like, people are like, oh, why are you, like, criticizing people for saying that they want this? I'm like, because the truth is, you may say you want this, but it actually is really hard to do this for somebody.
And you want the
It's because in your
idea of
head you
this.
have this idea that like this person's gonna depend on you and you're gonna be there for them and you're gonna have this this sort of love where you just like have this dependent relationship. But speaking from somebody who's been a caretaker for years for somebody and literally watched them deteriorate before their
Right.
eyes, like that's not
Right.
easy in
Yeah.
any format. And here's the thing, I love my grandmother with all my heart, and if I had the chance to do it again for her to be here, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Mm.
But let me tell you, it's not for the weak. You watch this
Yeah.
person become like a shell of themselves. You're literally having to do everything for them, physically pick them up, clean them, change their clothes, change what their depends, or help them go to the bathroom or whatever, like bathe them. You have to do everything for that person. And obviously there's varying levels, but like the sentiment still remains that it's a lot of work and time and like physical, emotional,
Labor.
and mental labor that you have to put into this.
Yes.
Like, and not to mention having to put things on hold, ideas, plans, dreams,
Your life.
all these
yeah.
things,
Having a
your entire
family, yeah.
life.
Yeah.
That's where, like me when I was I just graduated, and that was like a full circle moment for me, but it's also super emotional because like I put that on hold for years to take care of my grandmother. So finally being able to achieve that like was great, but also not having her here with me for that was like a really, really hard thing. But I also don't regret taking care of her and putting that to the side. Right. But it did chip away a lot at myself and my mother, to the point that I am now noticing signs of aging in my mother, whereas she didn't have that before because she was constantly caring for my grandmother with me. But now it's like the notion that like now that she doesn't care for her, and now that like she has put all this physical, mental, and emotional labor into when she was taking care of my grandmother, now my mother is starting to age faster, and then I'm noticing signs of aging faster in both my parents, which is then preparing me for the reality that like if it continues down this road, I might be caretaking for them sooner than I had even imagined that would happen.
I always admired that about you, Safi, that you were your grandma's caretaker, and I know it must sting quite a bit to like have your graduation and not have her there.
Yeah.
But I know she would be very proud of you.
I appreciate that. And honestly, like I said, I mean, I'm glad that I did it. I got more time with her than I can say anybody did. And I'm always very thankful for that, even if it did sometimes take a bit of a physical, emotional, and mental like stress and toll on me. I'm very glad that I got the time with her that I did, and that I got to be the person that was there for her during the time where she needed somebody the most. But I will say it's not, like I said, while I can understand the notion of wanting to take care of someone, it is definitely not everyone's thing. Like it's not something anybody or everybody can do. It's a lot.
A lot, absolutely.
It's a lot more than you can ever entail or even think about until you've actually done it.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, most people can't even handle a regular healthy relationship.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Or taking care of yourself.
Actual.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's so true though.
Chat, this is your last call for questions. We'll be wrapping up soon. Last call for questions. Thank you very much. Princess, I'll also give you the opportunity to ask anything you might want to have asked so far before I sort of wrap up.
I think the one thing that I kind of put in our pre-chat for Discord, like I think a couple of weeks ago, was like, for our panel of guests, do you think, you know, the way you were raised, like, helped or harmed you in any way? Like, how you were raised as a child, what have you brought with you into, you know, current day, and like how you live your life? I know it's a really broad question, so feel free to take it in whatever
speaking as a
direction you
Vtuber.
want.
Here we go.
I think it has both helped and harmed. I'm not gonna lie. Like I feel like there were certain things that did more harm than good, and didn't exactly help, but I still learned from it and I still grew from it. But they have also kind of skewed certain aspects of my own mental and like things like that. But I feel like there are some things where I didn't understand as a child, and I was like, I don't understand why they're doing this. Like, it doesn't make sense, and yada da da da. But now that I'm older, I'm just like, okay, I'm kind of glad they did these things, and they kind of made me the way that I am, because I learned to like be the kind of person that I am today, a person that I'm pretty proud of, considering like I very much do my best by anybody and everybody that I care about, and like I try to be giving and I try to be caring, and I try to make sure that I'm like there for people and supporting those that I love and care about, and those are like things that were instilled in me by my family. So there's definitely a little bit of both, like good and harm.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some lessons that I feel I wouldn't have learned if I didn't experience a lot of things I did growing up. But like the caveat with that, right, is that then you still have like lingering effects from it that sometimes you can't shake off. For like, so like for example, like me growing up, my family is like very was very religious. Like Filipinos are also like known for being like super Christian for the most part. And like I was like the golden child. Like I always like memorized my Bible verses. I did like I was really I behaved really well in like Sunday school and all that, and like I did all these things to try and like please my family and like the community, especially like the Filipino Christian community, since like my grandpa actually like founded a Filipino American Christian church, and like that's the church I grew up with, and so it basically, as I was growing up, I was like molded into like a people pleaser, right? And it wasn't until like I went to a private Christian college, one of like the biggest regrets of my life, to try and please them, that I actually like stopped being like Christian myself and like started like questioning all like these different beliefs and like not accepting things just because, you know, other people say that this is how it's supposed to be. And like I am like super proud of like of my progress in that, and like I wouldn't have learned that without those experiences. But the after effects of like it's really hard to stop being a people pleaser. And
Oh,
like
God, yeah.
like even with like all my progress, I still have tons of like times where I relapse to that.
I feel that, yeah. I think I am who I am because of how I was raised, right? Like I was taught to be very resourceful as a child, and it's helped a lot in the hobbies that I've gotten myself into. I mean, least of all, VTubing, right? Having to learn all of the tech and the setup and learning how to stream in addition to that, like, I feel like all of that would not have been possible for me as a person if I didn't learn how to be resourceful as a child. But yeah, like Mayuri said, like, you take a lot with you, like, both the helpful and kind of like how harmful it is, especially being a people pleaser. Like, I constantly find myself checking myself often of like, am I doing this because I want to do it, or am I doing this because I know people are looking forward to it,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah,
And I think
same.
as streamers too, yeah, like we're always, you know, we're trying to be authentic, but also trying to ride whatever trend is
The
on
metrics.
the up and up.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, never escape it.
Yeah, do you want to do it, or do you think your viewers want it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like I was like kind of always seek like some form of like validation in that form too,
Validation.
where like, am I doing something that other people are okay or like proud of or happy with? And then I always have to kind of catch myself and be like, okay, that's great and all, but am I happy doing this? Like,
Mhm.
is that something I want to do, or am I just conforming to what other people want me to do because I want the praise or the validation or just the good feeling of like doing something for other people? Whereas kind of like that's like the kind of almost like the negative side of always trying to be there for people and supporting and people pleasing and like all these
Right.
things
Yeah,
is like,
absolutely.
while I have this instilled in me to always be there and be supportive and be all these things, it's sometimes to the point where I forget about what I want or what I
Yeah.
should do or what makes me happy. And then I always just look for that validation else wherever I can find it. Like,
Yeah, sometimes it comes to the point where you're kind of questioning like your own identity.
mhm.
Trying to think of how I would want to answer this. I think it's good and bad. I think it go back to like the whole being supportive of that creative endeavor really helped. I moved around a lot, so that made me really resilient. But it also made me very compartmentalize and kind of make it very difficult for me to like trust people. I've had to work a lot on doing that, but that's not necessarily related to my ethnicity, but it was a thing of like upbringing. Yeah,
You've had to work hard to get out of your shell.
yeah, very much
Get
so.
out of here, Atra.
No, he's right. Dang it! Another egg.
I was gonna make a joke about compartmentalized, and I passed on it. Then he kept going, and I'm like, I had to say something.
I gotta get the yolk in there somewhere.
Get the yoga there. Got my brain all scrambled.
Yeah, that's a good retrospective introspective question. The biggest thing I took away though is like always supporting the hobbies and interests. Like that's something I'll take as like being as a parent is definitely doing that. Not maybe the same way that he did, where it's like you could do it until you grow up and be an adult. Then it's then it's not an option anymore. Then you need to be a real job. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think I have a bit of everything that everyone has said here. Like, definitely got a bit of the people pleasing and the numbers chasing and sort of like seeking the validation of others. But also like I do think I got some sense of like, you know, obligation towards others, duty and responsibility. That also was really good. So it's a
because
bit
that's
of
not always a bad thing, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
being responsible and, you know, taking care of others is good. But you
Exactly.
have to understand where that feeling is coming from.
Right. And I think like not having a sense of a strong community growing up is the reason why I built one that I like for myself to be part of as an adult. You know?
Yeah.
Then I can like sort of instill the norms that I wanted to have, you know, one that was more inclusive and one that was more less judgy, essentially, you know?
I definitely feel that. Like that's definitely something that I feel like I also really resonate with, just because like, you know, on both sides of it, like I've never really felt like I belong, because like I kind of said, like when you go back home and they know you're American, they like have a certain like behavior and demeanor towards you, and then you're over here and some people are accepting and some people are not, and like you just kind of feel like you don't have an exact place to belong. So I feel like I very much took that and like ran with it when I like started like doing this and like forming my own community and things like that, because I wanted to make kind of a place where people felt like safe and happy and like they could belong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was funny when I went to India for the first time. It was the first time that like both myself, my grandma, and my mom had all been.
Yeah.
In like 5 generations, because like my great grandparents left there and hadn't been back. And like obviously people can tell that we weren't from there from the way we dressed and spoke and talked. But we'd hear people refer to us and they'd call us like NRI, which is like non-resident Indian, which is like an actual government term. So they'd be like, oh yeah, these NRI here want to go into that area there or whatever it is. And it would be like, okay, well, they're acknowledging that we're not from here, we're not from around there, but they weren't like rude about it, I suppose. But like, it was interesting, like, to feel like you, like everyone here looks like you, but you're not really from here, you know?
There is also something to be said. I think it is a very real feeling of Asian Americans growing up in America and not feeling wholly American, and then returning to their parents' homeland and then not fully feeling that.
Oh, absolutely.
That's like exactly how I had felt. Because even though I could pass easily, like in the sense that they, you know, my like speaking was very fluent, I was wearing the clothing, I was acting according to the norms, but they like mentally could like, I don't know how, but they could pick it apart, right? And be like, okay, like this one thing she does isn't exactly us, so like she's got to be like American or something.
Right.
Or like in my brother's case, like I said, his language, like him speaking the language like was like kind of broken and like stuff, so they would be like, oh, what's like this package from America doing here, like some stuff like that. Or like even family members would treat you a certain kind of way because like, oh, you're American. So like there was just like never this sense of like belonging no matter which way you go.
Yeah, like I would like go back to Guyana like a couple of times and people would just like make fun of me relentlessly for like not speaking like they do or being kind of nerdy or stuck up. So I just responded by being more stuck up. And I just kind of
No, literally though, that's so true.
Yeah.
And not to mention like the norms of like certain things as well, where like, oh my god, if you're seen next to a boy, there's suddenly gossip that y'all are like talking about getting married, or you know, you can't be in the same room as another man without somebody thinking something or other. Like when I went back for my sister's wedding, and I think like I had just met her like husband's brother, and we were like talking about like their wedding stuff, and like they would come over and like eat breakfast at my uncle's house, and, like all this stuff. And people started literally making rumors about him and I because we were talking, and I'm like, I have just met this dude.
The gossip
Like
is
we are just having normal conversation about like what we need to do for my sister and her husband's wedding.
insidious.
Or like just talk about like normal things where he's like filling me in on things about here and like whatever. And y'all just want to sit there and run with it. Mind you, at the time I was like 18. I wasn't looking for like anything
That's
ever.
the most exciting
like, at
thing
that
happening
point.
that day in that town or village or whatever it is.
On God. And then it got to the
Yeah.
point where like people would be like, okay, don't be with him alone. And we're just like, I was like, why? Because you guys can't like control yourselves and feel the need to start gossip? Like
And
what?
that country needs Wattpad and AO3. They got too much time on their hands.
Oh, and then the fun fact now is everyone's trying to get me to marry him. So
See, they're trying to make the fanfic happen in real life.
on God.
Alright. To sort of wrap us up, I'm gonna take this one last question from chat, and it's from Reyna. Reyna says, question: what advice would you give to people, whether Asian or not, to how to deal with familiar pressures, be it dating, education, or finances?
I feel like people are always going to have some sort of opinion as to what you should do because of the norms and because of like all the things that entail like Asian traditions and Asian culture and things like that. But at the end of the day, like the most important thing is to do whatever you think is going to make you happy, even if that's not going to follow the norm of the tradition.
Yeah, don't let your culture be a circusy for like selfish behavior or like manipulation.
Like it's a part of you. It's not meant to be something that pushes you into some corner that you don't want to be in.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My answer, financially, if you can support yourself, fuck it. You're an adult.
Mm-hmm.
You decide who gets to be in your life. You decide where you direct your energies. And if it's not helping you, then you don't need to keep yourself in that environment, But obviously, if you do rely on other people, whether it's family or something financially, if your welfare is affected by this decision, then you do unfortunately have to maybe find another way out if the pressure is too much. I'm very much forge my own path, very independent, and if you're in my life, you're in my life because I want you in my life, not because out of some obligation that I feel people are entitled to.
Mm-hmm. And like, don't get me wrong, this is easier said than done. Like,
Yes.
one of the things that like the biggest like sort of friction that I have with like my father especially is that he has a tendency to like, he won't say it to you directly, but he'll hold it over you that he did like X, Y, and Z for you as a child, or he paid for like this thing for you as a child.
It was your job.
Yeah.
I didn't ask to be put
I
on
didn't
this
ask to be
earth.
born.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
Yeah.
I did not consent to come out of the womb.
And it's just sort of
Yeah.
killing that sort of like inherent guilt within you. Because at the end of the day, thank you, and I'll do what I can. But like, I gotta live my own life, and if you want to be miserable about it, that's on you. But you had like 60 plus years to like sort of like build up your money, build up your life. If you still need stuff from me, that's kind of on you at this point, friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think, despite sometimes how flippant I talk about it, like it is a decision that I come back to often, that I kind of turn over in my mind. It is not hard, it is not easy to cut off familial relationships,
Not
as
at all.
someone who's been raised, to respect your elders and to give back what you've been given, and understanding that my parents came from a war-torn country to find a better future for their children. Like, I have to fight with that guilt every time I think about my decision to stay independent. So
Yeah, this shit is a
Atra
gut
said,
punch sometimes, honestly.
Yeah, it's so difficult. But I think for my mental health, and because I'm able to, right? Because, oh my god, the other week I was spiraling because my rent went up, and then I was like, what if I just sold everything, apologize to my parents even though I don't want to, and just move in back home? Like,
No, I get that.
I would sooner tell you to
fight
move
with
back
that
to
feeling
Vietnam.
all the time, you know.
Listen,
like, I
Vietnam's
was
pretty
just,
nice now.
going
You should probably just go there.
crazy.
I would say I
Yeah.
completely understand in that form though, because like cutting off, like you said, cutting off familial relationships is really, really difficult.
Mhm.
But it's also one of those things where like if you have the means to do so, preserve your peace. Like preserve your
Yes.
peace, hold your boundaries, and do what you need to for yourself at the end of the day. And I know it's gonna be like something that's super, super tough, but like those situations just suck. Like as somebody who doesn't talk to like 98% of her family anymore, I completely understand. Like it's
Ouch.
a difficult thing. It's really fucking hard. Like especially when you see like for instance like milestones that like like ex
Yeah.
close family members are making. Like, oh my god, I imagine being at my cousin's wedding and like us doing like dance numbers and like all these different things like we do at our weddings, and then now she's married and we don't talk and I didn't get invited or go. Like there's just so much, right? So like at the end of the day, I miss my family all the time, but they're not the same people that I grew up with. So
Oh my
cutting them
God,
off
yeah.
was necessary to preserve my peace as well as protect my family.
Yeah.
I feel that so hard. Like, there's so many times
Yeah.
like I've been so respectful to like my uncles and aunts, but because they're feuding with
Mhm.
my mom, they're just really not that nice to me, or they brush me off. And like, in my mind, I'm still like the little 10-year-old that's like, "Hi, uncle, I love you," but like they see me differently.
Yeah.
And like that realization was like, "Oh well, fuck you then." Like what?
I mean, I think the breaking point for us was
Yeah.
like when their actions started affecting my grandmother, even in her dementia state, and we were just kind of like, "You're now a danger to her mental state." Like,
Right.
that's first off a no-no. And then I think the other thing majorly also was the fact that they started getting physical with my mother, which I will not allow. You do
Yeah,
not step
absolutely
into my
not.
house and get
No.
physical with my mother. I don't care if you're her older
hell no.
siblings or whoever. You don't come into my house and disrespect people who have kept their arms open to you despite your blatant disrespect.
Absolutely. There are hard lines.
Like,
Yeah.
no, we're not doing that. So,
Yeah, we have the freedom, like where we're at right now, to like not do things
Yep.
how they used to do things, honestly.
yep.
And it doesn't mean that we may not be as close in subsequent generations as like they might have been in the old days, sure. But like I think sometimes some people need to be held accountable for the way they treat others, you know?
Yep.
Like your ancestors, they had their time. You don't have to worry about whether making them proud because they're dead. It's more important to make decisions and live a life your potential descendants would be proud of you for.
Yeah.
You know? And
Yeah.
like, but like even with that, I feel like going back to like what Safiria was saying, protecting your peace looks different for everybody.
For everywhere on, yeah.
If it means going against tradition and forging your own path, and you can live with those decisions, absolutely go for it. But if the consequences are not something you can live with, sometimes protecting your peace does mean swallowing your pride a bit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Well
let
said,
me
Forrest.
remind you that your parents are only human and they are just
Yeah.
figuring it out too. And whether that gives you empathy for where they are or that gives you more of an understanding of boundaries, let that be your piece. You know, they're humans.
I would say
They're
like
still
another aspect is like also as somebody who's like an aunt now and has like a role model position in the lives of my nieces, I definitely want to teach them to instill those kinds of things at an earlier age than I learned it, because I felt like I should have learned it earlier than I ever did, but that was something that never really occurred to my family until they were in the middle of something that required them to put down boundaries. So I want to like instill like healthy things like that in the girls because I'm someone that they look up to. And so to make sure that they also preserve their peace in the future and do the things that they need to do for themselves, like, is definitely something that I also think about.
That's a good point too. Like it's really important to like have better norms, especially for girls in our respective communities, I think. For boys too, especially if the boys are raised with a toxic mindset. Thankfully, I don't think the boys in my family were raised with such, but like if it's the case in like someone else's family, but especially to like improve the norms around like women. I think it's really important for like all of us to sort of like be the change, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think we just need to model the, behavior and the coping mechanisms that we never had growing up. And it's important for our younger siblings, whether they're cousins or, brothers or sisters, to understand that,
Yeah,
what
and you know what?
we
Shame
have
is a powerful
seen.
tool. They use shame on us, we can use shame right back on them.
Exactly,
Facts.
yeah. It worked
would like
for
to
us
say-
for a bit.
I would like to say one controversial statement that I have
Oh.
learned recently,
Uh-huh.
and it's this statement of tradition is basically dead people imposing their wills upon the living.
Ooh, hell
Yeah.
It's a very controversial statement, but it's something that I very much hold to take into perspective of, does this really make sense in the current context, in the current day and age, or is there a way to do this tradition that's more appropriate for the time being?
Yes.
And that's
Snapping
kind of
for
like
you.
how I view a lot of those decisions when it comes to very traditional ideals. Is like,
Right.
back then it was widely accepted, but now things have changed, and that's got to be the conversation. And I think that's something that I would say to that question is, when you're thinking about those cultural norms, those cultural views, those perspectives, is it appropriate, right? Because it may have been appropriate in the past, but is it appropriate now?
Honestly, good point, good quote, good line.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, all this is just really fantastic, and it helped me to understand quite a bit, contextualize some of my own experiences too with my sort of family, because I have not really talked about this with anybody, honestly. Sort of my own experiences. So thank you guys, really appreciate it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah, so I think we'll wrap it up. I'll give our guests a chance to do some plugs. Before we do, let me just sort of tie it all into a ball. This has been episode 4 of the API VTuber Talks. We had a wide-ranging discussion about sort of growing up Asian, the norms, and sort of like dealing with our parents, whether it was you are the oldest, the youngest, the middle child, an only child, and the community expectations too. We could probably be here for hours talking about like the way in which the community and like the culture sort of like affects the way that we were brought up. But I hope this encapsulates and like sort of helps you chat and viewers like sort of like think about your own journey is in your Asian American identity. Massive thank you to my co-host Princess Raska. Princess, what do you have going on?
Next month I'm going to AAPI and then Anime Expo, and then later this year TwitchCon. I have very teeny tiny merch. It is my Jump King sprite. So keychain, acrylic charm. So if you guys would like, please give me a follow. Check my Twitter and Discord for any updates. Other than that, I might have some more violin projects and orchestra projects releasing later this year. So, maybe check it out. And I'm building up a backlog for my ASMR audio channel. But yeah.
Yeah, you're in the
Thank you so
VTuber
much for
Symphony
having
Orchestra,
me.
right?
Yeah. Talk about being Asian. I play violin in the symphony orchestra for VTubers. But yeah, I have, business cards. So if you see me at AAPI, it's a really cute business card. I'm pretty sure our panel of guests have seen it. But if you want one, come find me at AAPI, Anime Export Twitch.
Thank you so much, Princess. Princess is always a delight and a joy, and
Thank you.
very
for having
talented.
me.
But behind the fluffy exterior and the talent is someone who's very thoughtful, very sweet, and has had so much experiences behind like the person that she is today. And that's why there was no doubt in my mind to like have her as the co-host for this episode. So thank you very much, Princess.
Oh, thank you, Atra. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
Of course. Next up, Asian Mike. What you got going on?
As I prepare not to try and yawn into the mic because it is usually bedtime for me.
Ooh.
I know, I kept
am
you
old-
up.
I am
I kept you up
old.
late.
Yeah, I am old man. This is normally my bedtime. Things coming up. Streaming this week. Destin Rivals had a new Pokemon card set. I managed to get a booster box and an ETB. So I will be doing an opening stream on this Saturday, and
Ooh.
looks like Marvel Rivals is being voted as the game to stream. Unfortunately for me, as a strategist main, I'm not excited for that.
Good luck.
Yeah, it seems like my fans want me to suffer this weekend, so
You got
that's probably what I'll be
this.
doing. Maybe going to TwitchCon. One of my best friends is going, and she's trying to convince me to go, and I'm just like, man, that's a lot of money. It'd be a great opportunity though. But it'd
Don't
be
go
really
to
cool
the
to go
con
to
itself.
TwitchCon.
Just hang out in the parking lot.
It's true,
get an
yeah.
Airbnb.
Good.
Yeah.
True.
Let's go grab lunch or dinner.
That would be
For
dope. That
real.
would be actually really dope.
Yeah, like why are you
she's
going to the
actually
con
already-
itself to hear Dan Clancy bullshit? Like fuck the con.
listen. I gotta see some of my favorite streamers there. Okay, all right.
Uh-huh,
That's
uh-huh.
the place to be, right?
Uh-huh.
But yeah, you know, I don't know if it's controversial. I like Pay Money Wubby. All right, I don't know if anybody knows who that is, but that's one of my favorite streamers. He's autistic and he's very funny, and I really like his content. But yeah, no, that's basically what I've got coming up.
That's fair enough. And Mike, thank you very much for joining this panel. You're always such a delight, and like it's always really fun to talk to you. And thank you again so very much.
Thank you.
Next
You're
up,
exquisite.
exquisite.
Oh my
yes.
god.
I would hate to furtado your time away.
Oh my god.
Oh,
Next
Mike's
up,
ready to leave.
hold on. There we go.
Not the chancla.
next up, Mayari, Rose, what you got going on?
I am admittedly taking a little bit of a backseat from content due to the nature of the freelance situation. So I'm currently job hunting, and that's most of my time. But I do stream at least once a week. They're kind of random, but we just like to chill. We hang out. I have come back to making audios. They are a couple weeks in between, but I am changing a little bit of a direction in how I do them. So that's what I'm planning in the next couple weeks.
You've trifurcated your content, I believe, right?
I'm sorry, what? I'm tired.
You split it up into like 3 different like branches, right? I think you said.
I did, and then with the amount of like effort and time that it took doing 3 different ones, I've essentially just I've decided to go back into just making it more general and
Wow.
gender neutral, considering a lot of the time the really specific pronouns ended up being kind of forced anyway. Yeah, so it's just all consolidated into like one channel again. Enjoyable for anybody.
Absolutely. I always find like Mayuri's like content journey be very interesting because I take a lot of inspiration from what Mayuri does, as myself being an aspiring VA, and I love the way that Mayuri like does graphics and aesthetics because like they were a big part of the reason that like I switched to Canva or structured my website a certain way. So you guys should definitely check out like the way that Mayuri does things because they are personally a great inspiration for me, and frankly, their content journey is really something to be beholden, I think. So again,
Aw,
thank you
Atra.
What?
No.
Thank you very much, Mayuri.
Thank you.
Last but not least, Safi, what you got going on?
I always panic when it's my turn. First off, Canva goated. Anyway.
So good.
So goated. You guys can check me out on Twitch, TikTok, my Twitter. That's mostly my shit posts and dumbassery
Yes.
that people like to judge me for. It's kind of funny the amount of people that like will comment and be like, Saf posted something sus. The world is spinning, around, the world's intact. Like, But yeah, you'll find like all my shit posts, my stupid little hee hee ha ha's and all that there. I do also have VGen commissions open. I know I have some charity streams coming up end of June. The 25th to the 29th. I'm doing the Vtuber Summer Slam. And then my birthday is in July, but that's like a little bit further away. That's better. But yeah, you guys can check out all my stuff there. I'm either super chill or super chaotic. There's kind of no in between. But yeah, I think that's everything. I'm probably gonna remember something like 10 minutes after the fact, but
Sure.
yeah.
Steffi's probably been at this like longer than anyone I've known.
8
Streaming and
years.
such. 8 years, yeah.
8 years this year, yeah.
Yeah, which I think in of itself is very impressive. And like I can't say enough, like so many like wonderful things about her, aside from like the family and like being a caretaker for her grandparent and just like all of the lovely things she does for herself and her community. But also like I do my one regret so far, and like one thing I'm trying to do better on is getting more Daisy and brown people onto this podcast. So while Safi is the one that I always grab for this sort of thing, you've got the power of like 3 people, honestly. So
yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
You got me blushing and shit.
So from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much, Safi.
Thank you for always inviting me and like letting me be a part of it. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I've been your host, Atramentum. You can find all my links at atramentum.inc. That's atramentum.ink. This is episode 4 of 5. We'll be finishing this series on Friday. Episode 5 will be The Rise of Asian Cool. We're talking about the early API internet culture. We're talking about anime conventions, esports, and all sorts of fashion and the Korean culture wave. It's a mixed bag of culture and other cool things. And we're going to have some lovely guests on, including Dodge Harang, Pretty Night Lori, Dulce, and Althemia. We'll all be talking about all these sort of like API internet culture for like the last episode of this series. But for now, we are going to be signing off. You all have a wonderful night, and like and subscribe. Good night, everybody.
Good night.